and we're fixing them. We're fixing them through treating them like you would treat your child or your daughter, holding them accountable, but we're opening a door of aviation to them. And we're taking baby steps to help them build their self-esteem and give them hope. Give them seeing that there's a future in their lives, and using flight as a metaphor. We have 4 airplanes, 3 flight instructors. It's in partnership with Monterey County Office of Education. They fund the academic portion, which incidentally, we're using the ALPA program right now.
Nice.
Oh, it's fabulous. We did it at summer school. These kids are so engaged, it's hands-on, and it's all the STEM. And so about yesterday, we made the announcement that we're gonna start career technical education. 3 wonderful human beings, Tom Siebel, Craig McCall, and David Lucian, have committed to 3 Carbon Cubs they're donating to us that we're gonna build. We're going to build the kit EX2. That's $160,000 for the kit, and if you build it right and get the right builder, we can sell it for $300,000. We get to keep the money to keep this generating.
Great
and the kids, this is just a once in a lifetime opportunity for a nonprofit. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Bob Hoover Academy, and I'm just so excited about this because now we have our academics in place. Now we're going to have our vocational career technical education, and what I can do now is not just broken kids now. I can take kids who want a future and start them in the 9th grade. I'll get them a pilot's license. I'll get them a driver's license. I'll get them a bank account. I'll give them all those tools, and now they'll have a skill. And they're just about be ready to get their AMPs when they get out. And we're partnering with Reedley College, that is very well respected, and they're going to mentor us on how to do this correctly, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm so excited, Randy. I mean, it's great.
I can obviously the emotion is just on your face and in your eyes. Maybe tell us, is there like a kid that comes to mind, a story that you can share that kind of exemplifies what you're doing? I'd love to hear about, a story about one of these kids that you've been working with.
Okay, let me tell you about Martin Mendez.
Let's
right
go.
Now, he's 25. He just got his AI. A year ago, he got a CFI. He was an AMP. He works at FedEx, and he hated us. He was living in a garage, nothing. Hated school, hated us, and in the 12th grade, the light bulb came on. Went to Gavilan College, got his AMP. We almost had him to solo, and he went to the dark side for about 2 months. So he didn't get to solo. When he graduated, he comes back and says, "I screwed up. I says, "Yeah, you did. We'll hold him accountable like you got to hold your child accountable." And he says, "But I want to fly. I really screwed up. I know I screwed up." I said, "Okay, Martin, you can work for me for a year, and I'll fund," because the Bob Hoover Academy is about 9th through 12th grade. He graduated, which is great, from high school. And so he worked in my hangar for a year on the weekends to earn enough money to solo. Then he paid for his own private, paid for his own instrument, paid for his own commercial, and then we co-funded his instructors, and he's back teaching the kids. He's 25 years old, and he just bought his first house for his mom. Okay, he's out. He is fast tracking it. What's so great about this alumni? When you fix a broken kid, they've never had anything before in their life. They don't turn around. They are steadfast, and it's amazing what the power of flight can do.
And then that ambassadorship that then they will bring and preach out. I mean,
and he comes back to volunteer. It's just great.
It's even more than that. You're not just getting people excited about a career in aviation and learning to fly. You're providing life schools that changes the trajectory of their life and the legacy for their families years to come.
If you're not striving to be a better pilot, you're not striving to be a better human being. I mean, flight does so much. It's in terms of searching for excellence in execution in everything you do, and because you're betting your life on yourself. And so when you go home, you can't be a bad guy. You just can't be. There's so many metaphors at flight. It's just so powerful. On Flying Magazine, I was saying the other night to you guys, I'm 12. My first magazine was Flying Magazine, Aviation Magazine. I just dreamt. And then it told me what's possible and the stories I learned from flying from then. I go, wow, is this really possible? And it's just amazing what this power is. And it's amazing the human beings that are involved in flying, who fly for a living, who work on airplanes for a living. They're all so passionate, they're all so reverent. And I feel honored to be a part of this community. I feel so honored to be still, I love going to work every day. You know, I'm not flying as a solo performer anymore, but I'm teaching. And that's just as much fun. I go to the airport every day, flying with these clients, and they just are so eager to learn, and I want to teach them safely, but I want to teach them everything that Bob Hoover taught me, and Charlie Hillard, our first world champion, taught me, and Leo Loudenslager, our second world champion, and the French connections in terms of life lessons and how to take those into the cockpit, to be reverent every time you go flying.
So in the time we have left, I'm really curious about how someone living in a garage who probably doesn't have an aviator in the family, probably not hanging out at the airport, how do they find out about the Bob Hoover Academy?
Well, excuse me, remember it was for at-risk kids, so we got our original kids from the probation department, the judge, and there was either going to go to our high school or go to jail.
So that's why they hate you. It's not their choice, right? They're thrust upon you.
They're just, gosh, even it's a tough life, and there's no pixie dust. This is really heavy lifting, but we're getting some great pixie dust now, especially with building a new airplane. But it takes heavy lifting work with these children, but all they are is children. When they come in, they come in at 9 o'clock in the morning as our assembly, and they're just beat, and then they become safe. They become safe. They leave their bag of poop outside, whatever their drama is, and they pick up that same bag of poop when they leave, but they become empowered throughout the day. And you got to just take baby steps. But now with this whole other agenda, with the outreach, with the entire community, we are rocking it.
All right. Tell us where your website is.
BobHooverAcademy.org. And please, anytime, come visit us. We'll come be a Bob Hoover Academy student for a day. I mean, it's really a lot of fun.
Bring your own bag of poop.
And leave it outside the door.
Leave it outside the door. Don't light it on fire.
That's right.
All right. Well, Sean,
pleasure.
Thanks an awful lot for everything you do.
Congratulations, Sean, and thank you so much.
Nice talking with you guys.
That's really wonderful. All right, thank you. So next, I believe we've got a Redbird segment. You know, sort of an old, a personal eye laugh story almost from one of the Redbird employees. So Josh Harnagle, he's the VP of marketing at Redbird, and we're going to hear his story.
Holy You good, Greg? So we were flying on March 28th of 2023 on our way to Sun and Fun. My company Redbird exhibits there, and I had myself and then 2 passengers that are employees of Redbird. That morning we took off from San Marcos, Texas, which is where the airplane is based, and my flight plan was to Albany, Georgia, but that was really just to stay on the north side of the storms. There was a significant amount of thunderstorms, convective activity in southern Louisiana and along the Florida Panhandle. So we were about 2 hours into the flight, and we'd had to make one slight diversion to the north because the storms were building. I could see them off to my right side, and we were starting to get into sort of the smaller buildups that accompany a large system like that. At 15,000, we leveled off, pulled the mixture back to Lena Peak. Everything was looking normal. And then maybe a minute and a half after I had pulled the mixture back, I noticed a distinct reduction in power. The airplane is turbo normalized, so at 15,000, I should get about 30 inches of manifold pressure with the turbo. And I looked over and I had about 19 inches, manifold pressure, which is obviously a problem. And my fuel burn was sub 10 gallons an hour. That turbo has a number of failure modes. And if you get in that situation, the most common, honestly, is something on the induction system comes off. A hose pops off, and you basically have a normally aspirated Bonanza, and it's not a big deal. There are a few other modes that are much bigger deals, and I honestly didn't give them the respect they deserved. And so I treated it really as an induction system problem from the beginning, which is just, I'm an optimistic guy. My gut reaction in that situation was to think it'll work itself out. It'll be okay. But there are times in the cockpit where optimism is not the right choice. Emergencies and situations like this are not always clear in the moment, and you can be overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of everything that's happening. It is true that 80% of accidents, 80% of fatal accidents are pilot related, but that still leaves 20% of accidents that are not. In the Part 91 single pilot in an airplane, we definitely don't focus enough on handling emergencies as they are actually happening in the real world. I think the main thing that should be taught for these sorts of situations are not really specific to a specific failure mode or anything like that. It's more about the way you think about and approach problems in the cockpit, and the getting comfortable with the idea that you make decisions under opacity and you don't have all the information. And even if you do have all the information, even if it's all there, you may not be interpreting it correctly. How do you keep thinking through the problem even after you've made a choice, just to double check that it's the right choice? And I think a sim is an excellent place to get that practice, and a well-developed, well-presented scenario that gives you multiple choices with varying degrees of right and wrong is a fantastic tool, and really should be a part of every serious pilot's training. Being a Part 91 general aviation pilot is actually one of the really unique things that you can do in life. The ability to be responsible for and have complete authority over the operation of an airplane in the real world with real situations and with real outcomes it's rare. There's not many places in your life where you can have that kind of responsibility.
Hi, I'm Rob Ryder, host of Flying Magazine's I Learned About Flying from That podcast. Join me as I interview pilots who get into dicey situations and live to tell about them. You can get I Laughed wherever you get your podcasts and learn some of the flying lessons that sometimes only experience can teach. It's brought to you by Avemco Insurance. I Learned About Flying from That, from Flying Magazine, fueling the passion for flight since 1927.
Can I just say something? Can we go back to that package, the Redbird package we just watched? A couple things. That moment when they throw off those headsets when they're on the ground, that is a visceral moment. That was super intense. Secondly, the cows are everywhere. They land, they look around. It's as if it's crazy enough.
Happens
they're
every
in
day.
cow pasture. And then the last part is they camped at their site that night 10 yards from that tree line. I mean, that's just an incredible story.
Yeah, and what an amazing story for the vice president of marketing for Redbird to have his own emergency, right? So as pilots, we train for the worst and we hope for the best, and that's the beauty of Redbird is you can do these scenarios, you can reset the scenarios, and you can really be prepared for that. It's interesting because we train for these things all the time, but you don't simulate your trip to the grocery store, right? Most accidents happen within 5 miles of your house, but you don't train for that, right?
It's great and compelling to have an I Laugh story, but nobody wants an I Laugh story. Those things can be true at the same time, correct?
That's true, but they all have a happy ending, and we all learn from those as pilots, right?
Correct.
So Rob Ryder does a great job with these. And he pushes one out about every 2 weeks. And we always encourage people, people at the shows, people that watch the podcast and want to send in their own thing. You're always welcome to do that. You can send in just a brief transcript or an email to ilaughed@flyingmedia.com. And then, Rob can reach out and talk to you about doing the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's just, aviation and safety are inextricably linked.
Yeah.
We have all sorts of really wonderful features that can be in aircraft now. We have aircraft that have parachutes, we have aircraft that have airbag seat belts, and just all the safety that's built into an airframe is pretty amazing. It's on par with automotive. In fact, it probably exceeds automotive engineering.
Yeah. Well, Day 3, Oshkosh Live, powered by Redbird, is going to keep going after our awesome morning show here, Randy. A lot of great stories and conversations to come. John Zimmerman with Sporties is going to be here to talk pilot supplies, buying trends. Airline Geeks Ryan Ewing is going to be having a conversation with influencer content creator Big Earn. Stick around for that. We've got Experimental Avionics with Kit Planes Editor-in-Chief Mark Cook. Elite Aerobatics with Mike Goulian. And then I'm going to be joining our producer, Kaylee Nix, out on the grounds, having conversations with people across this beautiful landscape. You can really feel the energy on the place starting to fill up. We were here very early, but a lot of action here in the Redbird booth. It's Oshkosh Live, powered by Redbird. I'm excited for the rest of the show.
Me too. We're only about halfway through, so we've got our next segment coming up with the aviation consumer and Larry Anglisano. We've got 2 more days to go, so we've got another day of live content and some pre-recorded segments, and then Friday is just going to be a lot of pre-recorded content, stuff we just couldn't even get on the show. It's just too much content.
Yeah. Are you anything exciting on your schedule today? Anyone you're looking forward to talking to, or anything you're going to do?
I am going to walk the shore, right?
Yeah.
Or walk the show. There's a lot of stories that need to be told here, and so it's my job to go around booth to booth and talk to the manufacturers and suppliers and say, what is it that we need to tell aviation consumers? How can we spread the good news about aviation?
Yeah.
What are the untold stories?
Yeah. But obviously, as we're wrapping up here, still so much to come. Airline Geeks, Plane and Pilot, Kit Planes, Aviation Consumer, and AvWeb, all bringing you great stories and conversations. So Randy and I are here to sign off for the morning show. It's Oshkosh Live, powered by Redbird. Stay with us.
Same time tomorrow on Pre-Flight. We'll see you then.
It's happening. Okay, it's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag. Get. What?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Next. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Trashed?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Hundreds of majors, an amazing campus, faculty mentors. You can find what you're looking for at Middle Tennessee State, the University of Opportunities. We do it all.
Welcome to another edition of Aviation Consumer Live, part of the Fire Crowns Oshkosh Live series here at Airventure 2024 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, of course. Here with John Zimmerman, Sporties Pilot Shop, and another year at Airventure. John, I think you and I have been doing this about the same amount of time.
I think this might be 30 or 32 for me if I go back to when I was a kid. So it does sort of feel like a reunion of sorts.
Sure. They keep coming faster and faster every year. Before we get into products and all the stuff that you want to show off here, I thought we might talk about Airventure in general and where this show has come since the earlier days when I started going to this show. I started coming to Airventure early 90s, and kind of backstop me here, John. I kind of feel like the vibe from a product standpoint, buyer standpoint, consumer standpoint, very different now than it was back in the early 90s. And I've been kind of thinking that the vibe is different because back in the early days, people came to Airventure for smoking deals, right?
That's right.
Yeah, they had wads of cash in their pocket to buy the latest and greatest portable GPS, right? Remember in the early 90s, Garmin started coming on strong with portable GPSs. And it was even a time where we were making that transition from Loran C into GPS, right? Remember Tomorrow?
I remember Tomorrow.
Remember those days?
Those early GPSs. I remember the Garmin 396 when that came out. You remember when we had satellite weather on a portable device?
A little puck.
That was one of the most exciting product introductions I've ever seen. Yeah. And that Oshkosh, when that was first here, it was really something.
Yeah, so and vendors would show up with truckloads of these boxes, and it would turn into pricing wars towards the end of the show. Right. So buyers would go from hangar to hangar to save $50 on a $300 unit. So I think the point I'm trying to make is those days seem to be gone, and I think it's robbing a little bit of the excitement from a buyer standpoint. It's become more of a spectator show than it is a buying show. What do you think? Am I off base here? Or
I think you're right. I mean, I can remember coming as a new private pilot in 1996 maybe, and I mean, I had a backpack that I came empty and I wanted to leave full, and I wanted to load it up with gadgets, and I needed a headset and a GPS and 3 new flashlights and a new knee board, and just an endless list of things. And I think you do see less of that. I think it's not all bad. Oshkosh over the years has grown. I think it's a big tent show now, that everything from military and airline to career and still the home build experimental. And so that's good. It's brought in really the whole aviation community, but there's a part of that we've lost. It's a little more focused on OEMs and big projects and a little less of the individual pilot shopping for the next deal. So.
Yeah. So when we talk about the latest and greatest gadgets, and we sort of try to parallel what we saw in the early 90s with all this fresh new gadgetry and new technology that's come out, we look at where we're at today in 2024. Have we reached technology saturation from a pilot supply standpoint?
I don't think so. And I'll give you a couple examples. I mean, number one, when the iPad came along, everybody thought rightly, oh boy, well, all those Garmin GPSs are gone. And for the most part, they are. But they've been replaced by things like Sentry and Stratus receivers. They've been replaced by battery packs you've got to have to run your iPad, by knee boards and mounts for your iPad. Now, some people have got to have cooling cases to keep their iPad cool. So there's just sort of a new ecosystem that's grown up around that to replace the old one. Another great example is radios. We're showing off our PJ2 Plus and L6 radios here, the portable comms. And you would think radios, very, let's be honest, World War II technology, right? I mean, VHF radios, surely those are gone and those have been replaced, but they haven't. I mean, the number one product in our booth Monday on opening day was the PJ2 Plus handheld radio. So there's still a need for a lot of these things. Certainly it changes. We work really hard at Sporties to stay on the leading edge of that, to respond to what pilots are changing, and it's no longer GPSs, it's iPad, and it used to be $600 nav comms with CDIs, and now it's a basic comm. So I think the details change, but the desire and the need for equipment, that remains. So
well, let's get into let's talk about Sporties. For staple in the industry, and Sporties is synonymous with all things pilot supplies. How have you seen the market change from the early days of Sporties? for folks that don't know the history of Sporties, it's a fascinating story. Let's rewind a little bit and talk about the very early days of Sporties and where we're at today.
Yeah, it's a great American business story. Sporties started in the trunk of a car. Literally, our first warehouse was a Studebaker. And Hal Shevers, who was an engineer at the time and a flight instructor, sold some things out of the trunk of his car, kind of in between his day job. And that grew from there and became an ad in AOPA magazine, and then a little store at Lunken Airport. And then in the 70s, moved out to Claremont County Airport, where we are now, and just has grown through the catalog era, through the internet era, 63 years later, and here we are. And, you know, a tremendous amount has changed. We got started and it was in-person 3-day ground schools, and then it was VHS tapes, and then it was DVDs, and then online, and now apps and everything. The technology has certainly changed, but as cliche as it sounds, the fundamentals are really the same. You know, we're about making flying safer, easier, more fun. I think that's what almost everybody at Oshkosh is about in one way or another.
Yeah.
And so we try to use new technology to achieve those same goals. And so that's a lot of the stuff we're selling today is still getting people excited about flying, teaching them how to fly, making them safer, helping them take that big trip and make it more fun for the whole family.
Yeah.
Those same things, those same goals remain the same.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about training and how Sporties, I think, has been on the forefront. You know, for years, we've been at Aviation Consumer reviewing training material, particularly training courses, and you know, we're pretty hard-nosed when we look at products.
I agree.
And I got to say that there hasn't been a Sporties training program that we haven't liked, or at least crowned a winner. How have you worked to make these products as good as they are?
Yeah, it's been a real focus for us. I mean, listen, our first product, literally, in 1961, Hal Shevers was teaching 3-day ground school. So in the one sense, it's close to our heart, it's who we are, it's what we know. We've been doing it our entire career as a company. Two things I think that help us a lot. One, we run a flight school at our headquarters, so in addition to our e-commerce operation, we've got 23 training airplanes, 200 students, so we are in flight training all day, every day, and that's tremendously valuable because we see firsthand what training is all about. We see what student pilots want, and that really helps us react very quickly with our content, because the content is at heart what counts. The piece that really takes the good content and takes it to the next level, though, is over the last decade we've built our own learning management system. We got tired of trying off-the-shelf solutions and just built our own from the ground up. And so what that allows us to do is create great content and then push it to multiple platforms. So our course is now available online, iPad, iPhone, Android, smart TVs like Apple TV and Roku, CarPlay, you name it. We basically have decided we're going to be everywhere for the same price. It's just one platform. And that's been a key piece for us. And about 5 years ago, we really hit our stride there. And that ability to deliver 35 different courses, so content for every type of training, but then have a really great experience and not have to click around with a clunky software has really taken us to the next level. And then it's better to be lucky than good. We happen to hit a training boom here in the last 5 years, as you know. There's really a great excitement, a lot driven by airline pilot hiring, but not all. It feels like there's a new generation coming into GA right now, and we're just thrilled to be participating in that because we need it.
Yeah, it's a mix of generations, and where I'm going to go next is, I did this live show with Kyle Ludwig over at Garmin the other day, and one of the things we talked about is the need for good training when it comes to retrofit avionics.
Yep.
I think it's a real problem. You know, we talk to insurance pros who are seeing an increase in accidents, not only post-maintenance, which is sort of a topic on its own, but they're seeing troubles when folks pick up airplanes after major avionics retrofits. And as a guy that spent a fair amount of time in the shop, I can see that. Yep. I can see why. And in fact, one insurance pro said, we're seeing more ground accidents because people are just, they get their heads buried in the panel. And so where I'm going here, from a training standpoint, particularly with your IFR courses, how do you represent retrofit avionics or even OEM avionics in your training courses? Because as you and I both know, you could climb into 4 different airplanes have 4 different systems. And even if they are the same systems, in a retrofit world, they may not be interfaced exactly alike, particularly from an autopilot standpoint. And that's really, really important. It could be a killer. So how is Sporty's incorporating avionics into the training curriculum?
Well, first, you've got to start by acknowledging it's an issue. I agree 100%. It's a great thing. The technology we have now is phenomenal, but it's an issue. We have tried to take kind of an all-of-the-above approach. So in our instrument course, for example, we're going to show pretty much every maneuver, steam gauges and glass cockpit. And we try to start with the fundamentals because it's easy to go deep down the rabbit hole on every button and knob of a G1000 versus a G1000 NXI versus a G600 TXI and all that. But you really need to start with a strong basis in the fundamentals of why do we use a flight director? You know, what is the purpose of a flight director and what does a heading bug do? And I know that sounds basic, but far too many people skip past that and they want to get into buttonology without understanding what are the different modes and what is that leaderboard up there really saying. So we try to stay grounded in the fundamentals. The second step I would say though is we realize we can't do it all. So we've partnered with Garmin, for example. We have many of their avionics training courses in our pilot training app. We partnered with Pilot Workshops on some of their courses. We partnered with Patty Wagstaff on some aerobatics training and some tailwheel training. So we're trying to really talk to the best people in the industry on these particular topics because we know we can't do everything. And I think that's paid off a lot. So we see a lot of people will use our instrument rating course, but then add on the Garmin course that works for them, whether it's a GTN Essentials course or a G1000 course. And so you can kind of pair your specific panel training with the fundamentals of what instrument flying in a glass cockpit era means.
Yeah. Any advice for folks that are a little apprehensive about a new avionics upgrade from a training standpoint? You know, because I think there's some of that going on where a buyer may want to spend money on a new panel, but they're apprehensive about the learning curve that tags along with it. What advice do you have as a very active pilot and somebody immersed in a training community? What might you offer?
First, do the homework, whether it's a Sporty's course or a simulator on the iPad from Garmin or someone like that. Read the manual. I know it's not popular among pilots, but read the manual. You do have to do the homework first, otherwise it's just drinking from a fire hose. But then go find the right person to fly with. And maybe that's an instructor, but honestly, more and more these days, I think sometimes the answer is just another active pilot who knows those avionics. It doesn't have to be an instructor. Yeah. Certainly if you need an IPC or something formal, you want to go find a CFI. But I think sometimes the real experts are the freight pilot who flies a Baron who's got that panel. Well, he may have 1,000 hours of actual IFR with that panel, and even just riding right seat and watching someone else operate it, I think there's a lot that can be learned there. A lot of times pilots fall into this trap of formal training event. I'm going to go for a 1-hour lesson with a flight instructor. That's fine, but I think there's a lot of learning that goes on beyond just that formal flight lesson scenario.
Yeah, and I think that's part of where the training is breaking down. When you talk about going to the FBO, grab a flight instructor to teach you how to use the new avionics that have just been retrofitted in your airplane, because they may not know any more than you do. Yeah. And one thing that I think is a good idea, it's worth the effort, is if you do put Garmin avionics in the airplane, Garmin has got some good in-person training at their factory learning center in Olathe, Kansas, where you can sit in a classroom and have these avionics at a desk, at a kiosk, with other aircraft owners. And I think it's a good learning experience, and it's one way to kind of take the edge off the learning curve.
Yeah, the other tip I'd give you, and this gets into pilot supplies, is ground power supplies now are better and more affordable than ever. And if you own your airplane especially, get one of these ground power supplies. White Lightning has a great line of them. I think you've reviewed. We use a lot at Sporty's. There are others out there. You know, for $500, $600, $700, you can sit in your hangar and plug in your airplane and twist every knob and push every button as long as you want at 0 knots and 1 G. And that's a great place to learn versus in the airplane when you're quickly behind the airplane. So I definitely think on a big panel upgrade, if you're going to spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on a panel, spend $700 and get a power supply so you can do some real on-the-ground training.
Plus you'll save your battery.
It doesn't hurt.
Well, enough on training. Let's talk about the latest trends in pilot supplies, something that Sporty's knows better than anybody else. Where are we here, Airventure 2024? What's the hot stuff? And what have you seen over the past year?
Yeah, there's still, as we talked about, a lot of action. I mean, our radios are still really hot. One piece that we've been working on is connecting this training part with Flight Sim. And Flight Simulator, as you know, had a huge boom during the COVID pandemic, 2020. We had a new Microsoft right about the time everybody was at home. I think that introduced a new generation of people to Flight Sim. There's a new Microsoft Flight Sim coming out this year in November. I think that's going to be a lot of renewed interest. The market has grown up since then, I think, maybe to support it better. So, you know, yokes and rudder pedals and throttles. There's really some good options to build a home simulator that, sure, it may not be a great way to learn crosswind landings, but it's a great way to learn procedures, some systems. So we're seeing a lot of renewed interest in that. One thing we've been working on is here with Infinite Flight, a mobile flight simulator that a lot of people may not know about, but it's available on tablets. And this is a great option when you don't want to go into your home office maybe and fire up the desktop and get the yoke and the rudder pedals out. Maybe I've just got half an hour. And so Infinite Flight is available on mobile devices like we've got here on the tablet. And we've integrated Sporty's course with it. So if you want to go fly you know, steep turns, instead of just playing a game, you can watch the video from Sporty's course, understand the maneuver, get some coaching from our flight instructors, and then go fly it right in the simulator with some guidelines. You'll see if you're performing it, you know, within ACS standards. And so, again, this is not a way to learn the finer points of stick and rudder flying, but it's a great way for a student pilot in particular in between lessons to fill in some gaps. We've got it here with the new Yaman Aero, which is a new mobile controller that's made for mobile devices. Made in the USA, great new product, again, for that casual, I don't have time to go fire up the entire flight simulator, hook this up to my tablet like we've got here, and I can do some real flying. It's even got, for all those tailwheel fans, yes, it has rudder pedals here. So it's not just about flying with the ailerons and the pitch. So that's a niche part of it, but I think a really exciting one for people who want to do a little bit of flight simulator training. Maybe they're they're overwhelmed by the idea of building a home flight simulator. That's a great entryway. And then as you get more into the flight sim world, there's a lot of great options. Honeycomb's got some great controls. And I think this fall, as the new Microsoft Flight Sim comes out, you're going to see a new renewed boom in the flight sim world because they are increasingly realistic. And I think there's real training value there if you use them the right way.
You know, some people just don't know where to start when it comes to building their own home or office sim. And in particular, Apple or where do you start? You know, what advice do you have for somebody that's serious about using a sim, whether it be to learn how to fly or to work on instrument training or just to get familiar with new avionics? Where's the launching point?
I think you've got to start with what your goals are, because this is another one of those where it's really easy to go chase the gear and chase the software. And the reality is, the big software out there today is Microsoft Flight Simulator, X-Plane, or Infinite Flight. And honestly, all of them are incredible compared to 5 years ago. So same goes for controls. You know, the Honeycomb Alpha is a great yoke. I would tell you to start with probably X-Plane or Microsoft and add a Honeycomb Alpha. That's a great starting point. You can build from there, add rudder pedals, add a throttle, add software add-ons. But that's not as important as your approach. And this sounds simple, but I see people overlook it all the time. If you're going to use a flight simulator for some type of training, fly like you do in the real airplane. And that means simple things like use your checklist. If you're going to fly Microsoft Flight Simulator, take your checklist from your airplane and run the checklist, because you may not be flipping the actual switch, but it's the same flow, and that's what you're trying to train yourself on. And this goes to avionics even. While some of the avionics aren't perfect representations, they're pretty close, and if it's about the habits and the flows and the scan, you want to fly real flight, you want to have a mission in mind, you want to use your checklist, you want to follow standard operating procedures if you have them. Those basics honestly matter more than the details. X-Plane, Microsoft, they're both incredible. The scenery is incredible. The airplanes are surprisingly lifelike. So I wouldn't get too caught up in chasing all those details. I would say get a yoke, probably at some point some rudder pedals, pick one of those sims, but more than anything, have a plan. And if you have a flight instructor, tell them you have a flight simulator. I'm shocked at how few pilots in training tell their flight instructor, hey, I've got a sim. What should I go do tonight in between lessons? Make it part of your training process.
Yeah. Well, that's good for training. Let's get into some cool stuff like pilot supplies. We could start with headsets.
Yeah.
Because shows like these are no better than score another headset. Backstop me again, John. I'm kind of thinking that the market is saturated with A&R headsets, right? We've been flying with noise-canceling headsets for years, and does everybody have one, or is there still a market for A&R headsets, and is that market for folks that want to upgrade to something better than what they've got? Maybe it's an old Lightspeed or an old Bose, or what are you seeing in the headset market?
I would say headsets is one area that's as close as you get to the old days of the Garmin 396 and the deal shopping. That is sort of the old AirVenture is alive and well in the headset market. Yeah. You know, Bose, Lightspeed, fighting out at the top. David Clark has some great products as well. There's still a lot of action there. You know, the Lightspeed Delta Zulu was introduced last year with CO detector and some interesting new audio features. Bose introduced their A30 last year. So there's new things there. Are people still buying them? Yes, absolutely. Part of it is you got to remember our industry is growing now, so we have new people coming into the industry, and many of these new pilots are going right for a premium headset. They've decided I'm in this for real. I'm committed to aviation. I'm going to buy once, cry once, and I'm going to get that Bose or that Lightspeed instead of stepping up through 2 or 3 different headsets. So we've seen that change where it used to be you'd buy kind of the cheapest possible passive headset as a student pilot. I'm shocked at how many student pilots I see in our flight school who are carrying a Bose A30 or a Lightspeed Delta Zulu. And then certainly you do have the trade-up people, the great traditional path of you have an okay headset and that becomes the right seat headset and you buy yourself a nice new one, and then 5 years later you move that to the back and you move yours to the right seat and get the latest one. There's definitely a trade-up business there, but headsets is one of the few things basically every pilot uses on every flight in every seat. So it's a big market.
Yeah, and you know, my own flight instructor made a pretty good point. He prefers his students to have good noise-canceling headsets because it kind of reduces the workload. The point he had is if I'm doing multi-engine training, I got a student that may not hear me or he may not hear ATC, so it really adds to the training environment. And I agree. Think that's something that some people just don't think a whole lot about. About flight bags. There's a ton of flight bags. I'm looking at that Flight Outfitters bag that you've got there, and worth mentioning about Flight Outfitters, these folks know how to market their products. And you know, anytime there's a new product, whether it's a flight bag, whether it's a jacket, whatever, they get these things out in the market and they send them out to us editors to get a look at them. And it's real high quality stuff.
Yeah, they do great work. We've been partners with Flight Outfitters from the start. We learned about halfway through that the founder of Flight Outfitters, Mark Glassmeyer, and I actually learned to fly at the same flight school in Cincinnati when we were teenagers. We didn't know each other at the time. We were just happened to be 2 kids trying not to crash airplanes at a flight school. And but because of that, they're committed, right? They have passionate pilots there. They love aviation, and so they're in it for the right reasons. They've got a whole new line they just launched this week. This is their lift bag is kind of the bag that launched the business and is probably the most popular flight bag I see out there. This is a new version of that. Really great look, great new features. They've got a new duffel. They've got a new backpack. Awesome bags. They do great work. As you mentioned, they also do jackets and a lot of other things. So you can always count on Flight Outfitters at Oshkosh. It seems like their new products come out. It seems like every 6 months they've got something new. And we've been selling a lot of these flight bags at the show this week. They're great. They're well made. They look cool. I mean, you want to kind of tell people subtly, hey, did you know I'm a pilot, right? I don't know if you've met pilots like that, but sometimes pilots like to let people know that they fly airplanes. And I think Flight Outfitters does a nice job of subtly suggesting, you can ask me about my pilot's license.
And last, you know, Sporty's has always had a good selection of swag and cool stuff to buy. What do you got sitting next to you over there?
Yeah, I got my friend with me, and he's sort of representing, we for a long time had Sporty's Wright Brothers collection, and that was our gifts and memorabilia business. And we just rebranded it this summer to Sporty's Aviation Gifts, just to be really clear that we have Sporty's Pilot Shop and Sporty's Aviation Gifts, same company, broad array. And I've got with me Otto from Airplane. Surely every pilot has seen the movie Airplane. Trusty co-pilot, and we've been talking about doing this for years and finally found the right way to do it. So you can now have Otto anywhere, and this is another one of those that has got out there in the market. I have been sent pictures of Otto in the right seat of a Learjet, in the cab of a tower, riding around a golf cart at Oshkosh. Otto is the hit of the show, and we'll probably sell out of them today or tomorrow. didn't bring nearly enough considering how popular it is, but it's a lot of fun. It's certainly a great conversation starter, and that's been kind of a fun way for us to relaunch our Sporty's Aviation Gifts brand, because that's a big part of our business. You know, we stock about 800 different models, and we've got our own brand of apparel called Aeroware, shirts and hats and everything. So that's a growing part of the business that, especially at Oshkosh, is great, right? That's one of those things you've got to come away from Oshkosh with a hat or a shirt or a model or something, or you haven't really been to Oshkosh. So
got a good supply of stuff over at the booth here this year?
We do. We got a good supply in front of Hangar B, and then our aviation gifts team is inside Hangar B, so you can go meet Otto in person in Hangar B, and if there's still some left, you can get one.
Cool. Well, camera crew's telling us that we've been yapping.
We could do this all day.
We could. But thanks everybody for watching another edition of Aviation Consumer Live. Thanks so much to my friend John Zimmerman, Sporty's Pilot Shop. And thanks a lot to our segment sponsor here, Lightspeed Aviation, for making this live show possible. We appreciate them. And thank you for watching. For Aviation Consumer Magazine, I'm Larry Anglosano with John Zimmerman, Sporty's Pilot Shop. Thanks for watching.
It's happening. Okay, it's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag. Get. What?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Calculating carbon monoxide.
Next.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Trashed.
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Tempest plays a vital role in the industry, and in today's world we are the leading spark plug and oil filter manufacturer for general aviation. We've been able to not only release new products, but we've taken legacy products and created innovations. We take great pride, not only from a design standpoint, but from a manufacturing standpoint, all the way down to making sure the customer is satisfied with the product. Quality, innovation, performance. Tempest.
We do it all. We do it all.
Hundreds of majors, an amazing campus, faculty mentors. You can find what you're looking for at Middle Tennessee State, the University of Opportunities. We do it all.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Airline Geeks, the Going Pro show, and I'm Kaylee Nix, and I'm actually here with Ryan Ewing. He wasn't here the first time that I was on this segment this week, but Ryan, we're so glad that you finally made it, and I get to start your show, which is a little weird.
Yeah, well, you started in Monday, so I figured it'd be a natural transition for you.
There you go, and the reason that I'm up here today is I actually want to talk to you a little bit about your brand, because it's super exciting, and it's kind of a very unique story in the space of the Flying Media Group. Airline Geeks is not just a brand, it's not just a media company, it's a passion, and it was something that you built, and we picked up on it, and that's what we love to do here, right? We love people who are passionate about the space, and now you're able to turn it into a little bit of money, but still a whole lot of passion.
Yeah, so I mean, just to give you a little background, I founded the brand in high school.
Yeah.
So whenever, however long that was, and really, kind of took off, no pun intended, and we did really well covering the commercial aviation space, news, but also, just telling the story, what goes on in the industry. And so, that went on for several years, and Firecrown, formerly Flying Media Group, came out and wanted to buy the brand, and that's what happened. And we kind of complemented the general aviation and private jet market with some of the commercial stuff that a lot of people find interesting. And we're here to kind of tell the story, right, and deliver what the audience wants, and that's always the goal.
Yeah, commercial aviation is a fascinating subset of aviation.
It's the stressful part sometimes.
It's stressful, right? This last week, it's absolutely a hot mess for the majority of people traveling. But it's interesting because it's a subset that the public has the most exposure to, but oftentimes has the least insight to.
Yes.
Everybody has this kind of idea of what actually goes on at commercial airlines, but nobody actually knows until you get into the thick of things.
Yeah.
And that's where Airline Geeks really has an opportunity to provide some insight, to provide some color commentary.
We get into the weeds that maybe nobody else really wants to get into. And I worked in the industry. I worked for a major airline for a little while, and before that I worked for a Part 135 operator, and before that I worked at an airport. So I've been around, and I can kind of use that experience to tell those stories.
So we got to know, the CrowdStrike outage is obviously the talk of the town. Certain airline that has 5 letters and may or may not be home based in Atlanta and Salt Lake City is still suffering with issues from this. Quick little news break. From your perspective, as someone who is actively stuck, not from the outage, there were some weather issues that complicated your departure out of Dallas. The dependence on technology and this, I guess, kind of not necessarily over-dependence, but this space that we're going in the commercial airlines. Too much, not enough. Do we need to find a happy medium where airlines can be successful and keep problems to a minimum?
Well, I'll tell you, these type of situations are things that keep airline executives up at night. And of course they also...
Unless you're Southwest, because hey, Southwest was great through this.
Yes, well, and they did a good job, and there's other reasons for that. But I think Delta, this is an awakening, right? This is the moment you say, okay, well, maybe we need to make some CapEx into our technology infrastructure. So we'll have to kind of see how this plays out. They're saying they're going to be a lot more recovered today. Still some residual impacts from lost bags, and crews still kind of trying to get them back into place. And that's always kind of the hardest part with these is getting your manpower back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, your ripple effects end up being less like ripples and more like giant waves sometimes.
Yes, absolutely, and it's a trickle-down effect, right? And network airlines are kind of built a trickle-down effect, right? And it's very interesting to see kind of how this plays out and what will happen in the future, because this will have a significant impact on their quarterly earnings.
Number one, be patient with the people who work at the commercial airlines. That's not their fault. It's just their responsibility to help you deal with it.
Yep.
Before I let you go, we're going to turn it over for you and your guest in just a second. This is like asking you to pick a favorite child. So Phil, if you can't pick a favorite, just tell me. Regional versus commercial, first off, what do you prefer? Regional versus major airlines?
I like certain regional jets more than others. Like, I will take an Embraer 175 over, 737 any day I can.
Yeah.
Super nice. CRJ 200, maybe not, when you're stuck 2x2. So I like the regionals, but, the majors, I think the regionals serve a very important purpose.
Okay, I love that. Second question. Out of the majors, can you pick a favorite, yes or no, and who is it?
Ooh, I don't think I could pick a favorite, but I'll tell you that some have gone out and made the right investments into the premium products, and some haven't, and we're seeing the impacts of that today in some of these quarterly earnings. So.
And last question, and this one's the toughie: Boeing versus Airbus. Where do your loyalties lie?
I don't think I can answer that one.
He's pleading the fifth.
Especially given recent news. Again, very different way of building an airplane. I think there's a great argument to be made that you have two major manufacturers controlling the market share. Perhaps there needs to be another one.
And I think that's a very important discussion that the industry as a whole needs to have.
You heard it here first, guys.
You like
Ryan,
my political
I do.
answer to that?
That was a great political answer right there. Ryan Ewing for the newest airline manufacturer.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go ahead and have you bring in a guest. Start off just telling us a little bit about who he is and why you chose to bring him on Airline Geeks, because he is an airline geek himself.
Yeah, so Captain Big Earn, as you go by. Otherwise known, you all might recognize him. He's very natural on camera. Big Earn, flying with Big Earn on YouTube. Tell us about yourself. We're here at Oshkosh. We're a little out of our element as Arizona people, or I'm a former Arizona person. It's a little colder. It was kind of cold this morning.
You know, I was cold.
I
was actually very cold last night and this morning.
Yeah.
But what was it, like 60?
Oh, it was
outside
like
or
62.
something?
I had to pull on a sweatshirt this morning.
Yes.
It was. Oh man.
Total desert rat. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it.
So you're a pilot, an airline pilot, former military guy. What got you into wanting to fly?
You know, it was my dad. Back when I could remember growing up as a kid, my father had model airplanes, and he would love putting model airplanes together, and he would hang them in my room. And just because he loved airplanes, he loved aviation, putting them up on the ceiling of my room, I would always go to bed staring at airplanes. And it just, I don't think it was his intention, but it's what happened. Nice. So now I love airplanes. And this is like awesome.
Yeah, yeah, man. So you have a YouTube channel, very substantial following. I'm a proud follower.
Yeah.
Watch all the videos.
Thank you very much.
Of course. And I think it's great, and I think it's a great way to get people, looking at becoming a pilot. But why did you start it? What made you want to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. My daughter was going to the University of North Dakota, and at the time, it's a long process. I wanted to keep her motivated. Mm-hmm. So, I figured if I started a channel and showed her what I did, and maybe her friends within her class group, maybe they'll get a little bit of an insight and be able to understand a little bit about what we do behind the scenes, what life is like, what being on the road is like, what sleeping in a hotel is like, and all the stuff that goes along with that. So that's really why I started it, and just to see the following. And I'm always humbled when people come up to me in the terminal and say, hey, you really inspired me to pursue aviation. That to me is
awesome,
the biggest payoff ever. And I'm just glad to do it, because I truly love aviation. I'm passionate about it.
That's awesome. So couldn't convince your daughter to go to Arizona State?
I told her about that, and she's like, no, Dad, I want to get out of town.
All right.
Can't blame her.
Yeah. A little colder up there, but that's all right. So you made the transition from military. What did you fly in the military side of the Arizona National Guard?
Yeah, so I started off in the reserves with the C-5, and then I came over to the Arizona Air National Guard, the Copperheads out of Phoenix, and flying the KC-135. So the transition between the two airplanes was seamless, even though you're going from giant airplane to a pretty medium-sized airplane, in the Air Force perspective. Yeah. So the transition wasn't.
You got it. That's part of the fun around here.
That's right.
So when you were at the National Guard, you made that transition. You made the leap to the airlines.
Yes.
What advice do you give people who are making that leap?
Just be a sponge. Go in with the right attitude. If you have the right attitude and the aptitude, it's going to work out. But you have to be able to go, hey, this airline hired me to fly this way with their procedures, so I'm going to do it. I'm just going to be a chameleon and adapt to what they're teaching me. So if you go in with an open mind, despite if you have 10,000 hours or you're a 1,500 hour guy, it doesn't matter. If you go in with the right mindset, you're going to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
So starting off an airline, you're junior in those ranks, you're sitting reserve, in New York, some people.
Yep.
What advice do you give? I mean, you lived that life at one point.
I did, and it ebbs and flows, like we know. The airline industry is just a constant cycle. So right now we're in a little bit of a pause cycle, so those that are coming in now are going to have a little bit different than those that came in previously. So my whole thing is be patient. If you're commuting's not an ideal lifestyle, but living in base is ideal. But depending on what airline you're with, you may not want to live in that base, and that's what gives airline pilots a great flexibility where you can live wherever you want. You just got to get to base. So being junior, commuting to reserve is a little tough, but remember, it's just a momentary
it's just a moment in time that you're going to be doing that.
So, starting off junior, how long have you been at your current airline?
13 years.
So, you were there in the early days, or early-ish days.
Early-ish, yeah.
But, why'd you choose your current employer? What made you want to, align with them? Because, well, I mean, you could talk more about this, but, when you pick an airline, you kind of pick it for life, a major airline. So.
You do. What really picked it for me was, I was in the Air Guard, so a lot of the Copperheads are Southwest pilots.
Yeah.
And I got to see how they interact with people. I got to see how they were on the trips.
Right. It's awesome, man. I mean,
so I wanted a company that really focused on people.
Right.
And so full transparency, I looked at FedEx and I looked at Southwest, and I said I am going to be perfectly happy with these two airlines.
Right.
Whoever hires me first, is where I'm going to go. And luckily it was Southwest, so
nice.
Been happy ever since.
Nice. So there's been a lot of changes, a lot of headlines about pilot hiring recently. Yep. I know you've talked about them on your channel and try to give people advice, but what advice do you give somebody who might feel maybe even a little discouraged that they see all this stuff coming out?
Yeah, again, I go back to the ebbs and flows. If we go back to the early 90s, it was a tough time back then. You just have to be patient.
Right.
And sometimes your timing isn't the timing that you want. So the advice I give is just remember this industry ebbs and flows, and depending on when you come in, you may have a really good few years, you may be stagnant for a little bit, but the key is just work hard, get there, and you'll have the career that you're supposed to have.
Love it.
Right?
Love it.
Well,
yeah. Well, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting with us. Where can we find you?
I have an Instagram account, Flying with Big Earn. I also have a website, flyingwithbigearn.com. If you send emails there, we get them. We try to implement them into future videos and stuff like that. But YouTube, Instagram are probably my biggest.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It is always a pleasure for me to welcome special guests to the beautiful campus of Middle Tennessee State University. Over the past 80 years, our aerospace program has prepared a generation of expertly trained pilots. And today, MTSU Aerospace alumni fly for every major airline in the world.
What we want to really focus on today is the fact that just how fitting it is that our very first program graduate, the first person to complete the entire process from start to finish, is an MTSU graduate in Colton Gray. So congratulations, Colton, on this amazing accomplishment.
When I had wanted to be a pilot, I always kind of thought that was something that those guys did that I couldn't do. And when I finished my tour in the military, I kind of said, I'd rather try it, fail, than ever try it all and wonder what if. And here I am 4 years later. So it's hard to wrap my head around. But I contribute so much of that to Middle Tennessee State University. Primarily the aerospace department, the faculty and staff are absolutely top-notch. We all know that. We're a little bit partial, but I have never met people in my life who are as caring and professional as those people in that building over there. So big thank you to them. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those folks. And I'm proud that I can represent Middle Tennessee State University going forward.
The Department of Aerospace hereby present Middle Tennessee State University alumnus Colton Gray with this certificate of acknowledging his success as the first graduate of the Delta Propel program. Congratulations,
Thank you so much.
You make us proud.
Thank you, Dr. McPhee.
All right, switching it up a little bit. Got Rick Leash, President and CEO of GoJet Airlines. Terry Basham, Chief Operating Officer, GoJet Airlines. we're here, talk about regional airlines, we talk about GoJet. Why don't you give a little background, one of you, on GoJet before we get started? Some might not know what you are.
GoJet Airlines, regional airline, been around since 2005. Terry and I and our team founded the airline back in 2005, so we're original members of the airline. Of course, I've been with the overall company for 37 years, the holding company and so forth, which GoJet's part of. Terry for a long time as well, so we've been together. But we fly for United today. Historically, we've also flown for Delta Airlines, as mainly with the CRJ product, and we're currently flying the CRJ 550, based in St. Louis, Missouri, but we fly out of the hubs in Chicago, Newark, and Dulles. It's a premium class 50-seater that we designed and certified on behalf of United Airlines. So it's an exciting project.
Gotcha, nice. So, you know, one of the big things you all have out there right now is that captain bonus, that direct entry captain bonus. It's very lucrative, very competitive compared to the industry standard. What made you all make that decision to put that out there?
There was an opportunity with, I mean, there were some stumbles that went on in the industry of late that created a period of opportunity where there was a little bit of a pause in the significant hiring that was taking place that created turnover, especially at the captain levels, which is what's been a sort of a restriction within the regionals here over the last few years. So we found the opportunity within a few month period that we could maybe build some momentum, and we wanted to make a big statement. We have a lot of growth to put in the air, a lot of exciting growth at GoJet, almost doubling the size of the carrier. And so we put it out there. You never know. It's a success-based program, so you never know how it's going to work. But it has been very successful. Terry can maybe give a little more specifics on it, but it's been very successful.
Oh, yeah, it's been a great hiring summer for captains, direct entry captains, and that's really what's driving the constraining the regional industry until recently was the availability of captains. After COVID, we had a drain in the regional industry of captains moving on to their final career, United, Delta, American, Southwest, around. So, but with the state of the industry today, a little bit of breathing room, and we've been able to recruit quite a few direct entry captains.
Gotcha. So you kind of talked a little bit about it, but the scale has kind of tipped a little bit because, you know, during COVID, there was a desperate need everywhere for first officers. Has that kind of, obviously it has, but has it kind of changed a little bit on your end to pivot more towards really needing captains, really needing that left seat filled?
It has changed. I mean, the industry, out of necessity, has responded in a big way to what you'd call the return on investment of becoming a first officer and a pilot in the commercial side of the industry. The barriers to entry are great. I mean, the Regional Airline Association, with Terry and I are both active. We do a lot of work on the Hill in Washington in trying to make sure we get support to make sure that the pipeline remains healthy and full. But there was a challenge with first officers because the return on investment, the cost of them having to go out and still build upwards of almost 1,000 hours or more on top of their 4-year or 2-year college programs in some cases, or even through the flight school programs where they have to build a full 1,500 hours, it's very expensive.
Right.
And so it became an elitist type of group in many cases, so the pipeline dried up. As the pay rates increased and the return on investment got to be significantly more, there's been this influx. I mean, Terry and I travel around speaking to schools all over the country, and they're starting to be full. But those folks that are going into class here, beginning their journey, it's going to take them, 3, in some cases 4 or more years to build the time that they need before they come to us. So the classes are full, the interest is there, we're seeing better candidates than we historically have seen. That's exciting, but you need to patch a first officer with a captain.
Right.
As those people leave, the industry hasn't been healthy enough to get enough first officers to get that 1,000 hours of 121 time they need to produce enough to generate the overages we need to not only just cover the turnover, but cover, in our case, growth. So
are there any, I mean, obviously, did you have something to add to that?
No, I think the good news is there's a lot of, the flight schools are full. Prior to COVID, we visited a lot of flight schools, and we found a very high percentage of foreign pilots that are cannot legally fly in the U.S.
Right.
Because the interest and the barriers were so great. So that has improved since COVID. The flight schools are full, and a lot of American citizens that are able to fly for us.
Right. So oh gosh, there's been so many headlines in the past couple years about pilot hiring and pilot hiring, but have you guys seen any other workforce constraints? I mean, maintenance, is that one that's kind of emerging? You know, I've heard some murmurings about that, you know, getting good A&Ps in the door has been a challenge, or is that something you all are seeing at all? Or?
Oh, we totally see it. I don't think there's an airline out there that doesn't experience that. It has not been as pronounced as the pilots, of which we're, you know, I'm not saying coming out of it, but we're definitely seeing a trend upwards in recovery there. But on the technician side, it's just getting folks, young guys and gals, interested in going into that line of work, supporting airlines from a maintenance and a tech ops perspective. It's heavily needed. It's a very desirous career once they get into it. It's very rewarding, but it's also just getting the folks interested. There's so many other things for young people to decide what to do, and they're not focused on becoming an A&P mechanic. We're doing a little better than most, but we still are always out there swinging, trying to get good talent in the door.
Yeah, we've developed a couple of apprentice programs, and they've been very successful. We take a non-skilled person, take them all the way through to get their A&P, and then continue to work for GoJet for a period of time. It's really trying to find that person out there that wants to get their hands dirty.
Right.
They're greasy and dirty.
Turn the old
mechanic,
right,
exactly.
right.
You're not playing on an iPad or a laptop
Yeah.
or doing a computer. So
it's great.
They're out there, though.
It's great to have those pilots, but you need that mechanic first.
You do.
Or the pilot have nothing to fly.
Yeah. So speaking of maintenance, you know, you all went out and opened an MRO facility in St. Louis, right? Again, what kind of drove you all to make that decision? Because not many regional airlines have done something like that serves other, you know, clients.
Not only many regional airlines, but not many airlines.
Yeah, right.
There's only a couple 121s.
Right.
I think Envoy has one, but they don't use it like we do or planning to. Delta has one.
Yep.
I think that's about it almost, but there might be a few more. But we're one of the very, very few. Look, we've always done. We have a very talented core maintenance group. We've always done our own heavy maintenance. It's been a focus of ours. We think we do it the best, and we can do it in a way that we can monitor quality throughout the entire process. Not that the MROs that we used in the past weren't that, but it's a lot of work overseeing them as well. We do a great job ourselves, and we saw that we were maintaining a core group. We started these programs, like Terry said, the apprentice program, where we were able to bring in talent and groom them in the proper ways of being a 121 mechanic, and therefore, it allowed us to say, hey, look, we had people asking us to do some heavy work for them because they knew that we did our own. And we thought we wanted to formalize that, get our 145, which we successfully did here just a few months ago. And I'll be honest with you, the demand is great. There's more demand than there is room at the inn right now, because we have a lot of work because we're growing a lot right now. But we are providing services to a lot of our regional friends out there, and we're anxious to do more. So we'll look at how to be a good 121 carrier for our partners, but also a good 145 MRO support station for our industry partners as well.
Right. Yep. So, you know, it's no secret that during COVID, regional airlines parked quite a bit of airplanes. You know, and are you guys seeing that improving now that the pilot hiring tempo is kind of improved?
We are seeing improvement. There was parking of aircraft and severely underutilized aircraft, of which there's a mixture of both. Yeah. A lot of the aircraft that we parked were aircraft that hadn't really flown for us yet. We were developing and modifying the 700 into the 550, so we were out there acquiring assets that we just never got into the air.
Right.
We are, originally, early in the year, we thought we might get maybe 2 to 4 aircraft out. We're targeting as many as 14 aircraft coming out between now and the first quarter of next year. So I would say the answer is an exclamation point, yes. And we're excited about what we're seeing. A lot of that's the efforts of our captain recruiting.
So my last question for you, it's kind of around small community air service. Regionals, huge in small communities. And, you know, us folks who live in major cities, we kind of might take it for granted. I do, where I'm like, I can get a flight anywhere. But if you live in a smaller town, it's hard. And it's no secret again, during COVID, a lot of small communities lost air service. Do you see that maybe improving as well in the next 10 years or so?
At the end of the day, it's going to be highest and best use for the limited assets that you have. And obviously our assets are still limited. They're still not fully utilized. They're still not all in the air yet, even though we're seeing a recovery.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're going to have, and possibly in some cases, because a lot of the smaller carriers, smaller turboprop operators have sort of gone by the wayside because they're challenging and struggling as well with the competitiveness of the 121 environment on the regional side. So I believe there's going to be some recovery, but if all those dots are going to come back on the map, it's going to be hard because the size aircraft that are being flown by regionals today, 50-seaters and up, and in our case, a premium class 50-seater might not work in all markets. It might be work for just transportation, but might not have the proper revenue or premium mix for that kind of an asset to fly there. So you got to match those two things together so the math adds up and works. Look, we want those points to get back. They are a very lifeline that helps generate the need for those wide bodies that fly all over our country and the world. And so that feed network needs to remain strong. I am hopeful that we're going to see a resurgence of a lot of that capacity coming back. We got a long way to go because there was a lot that has been lost in the last 10 years, but especially through COVID, but a lot in the last 10 years, really, since the 1,500-hour rule.
So, as part of the FAA Reauthorization Act, whatever that passed, feels like so long ago now, they put a little more money.
But it passed.
It did. That's the important part, right? Right. It put a little more stability into the industry. But, they put a little more money in the Essential Air Service program. Again, regionals have enormous part of that. Do you think that, because there was a time during COVID again that it was challenging for even some regionals to operate these contracts. Do you think that improves with a little more money in these programs to help out?
I think it improves, but I don't want to say that some regional carriers are heavily invested into that program, and it is a very important program in some of these key communities smaller communities around our country. But again, it's going to be highest and best use. There's still a lot we got to make sure we gain back within the core muscle of what the network is. And then once you sign up for EAS, it's a long-term commitment too. You don't just come in and go out. Right. So you've got to make sure that's what you want to do. That's what you want to be. And there are carriers that do it very well, and they have resources to do that. And so, I think the funding of EAS and the increased funding now to support what's probably going to have to be a larger aircraft, a regional jet, a standard 50-seater probably in most cases, flying to those points, you're going to need that additional funding.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see, but I think it's going to be it's a good thing for sure. EAS needs to be healthy. These communities do need to be tied into the transportation network, and that gives them access to the world for commerce and stuff within their communities. It's very important. So my hope is the answer to your question is yes. Yeah. We don't play in that environment today. We have historically throughout our history done that over the years, but not today.
Gotcha. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for talking about regional airlines. Thanks for coming to talk about GoJet. Really appreciate you all.
Honor to be here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We do it all. We do it all.
Hundreds of majors, an amazing campus, faculty mentors. You can find what you're looking for at Middle Tennessee State, the University of Opportunities. We do it all.
It's happening. Okay, it's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag. Get. What?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Next. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Trashed?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Tempest plays a vital role in the industry, and in today's world, we are the leading spark plug and oil filter manufacturer for general aviation. We've been able to not only release new products, but we've taken legacy products and created innovations. We take great pride, not only from a design standpoint, but from a manufacturing standpoint, all the way down to making sure the customer is satisfied with the product. Quality, innovation, performance. Tempest.
All right, guys, welcome back to another segment here at Oshkosh Live 2024. It's time for Plane and Pilot Prop Culture. I'm Kaylee Nix here with Amy Wilder, once again, our managing editor, editor-in-chief, doer of all things for Plane and Pilot magazine.
All the hats.
All the hats, right, all the hats. And today, Amy, we're talking about so you want to buy an airplane. You're not quite there yet, or are you?
I like to think I'm there, but realistically, I'm not there quite yet. But as a pilot, I can't resist looking at airplanes. I think that's pretty, universal. But I also don't know what I'm looking at. I don't have a lot of experience. Obviously, I've never bought an airplane. I know there are pitfalls that you can get into when you buy your first airplane, and I, like many pilots out there, could use some help.
It takes a lot, right? And it's a big world to wade into. And a lot of times pilots are sitting there and they're like, man, I'm at this point where I'm flying enough hours where it warrants me owning something, whether that's in part or full ownership, but then they don't really know where to start. It's an overwhelming process because, as you mentioned, your options are totally endless. And then you also need some support, whether that comes from the financial side or the transaction side, or just getting your ducks in a row to make sure that you have the storage space and the use case and the maintenance plan and all of the above, right? It's a big decision.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and I think some of it tends to be pretty opaque for pilots who are going through the process. It's hard to find a lot of good information about insurance, financing. If you don't have the mechanical background, you might not know a lot about what to look for in the machine that you're buying. And it's a big investment, so you really don't want to go into it blind.
Absolutely. So fortunately today, we've got some help coming to our desk here at Oshkosh Live. We've got some very fine folks from Airplanes USA are here to talk a little bit about buying a plane and what it takes. So with us today, we've got Steve and we've got Kendrick. Guys, thank you for coming on the show. Starting things off, Steve, let's go with you first. Talk to us a little bit about Airplanes USA and what you guys do.
Airplanes USA is an aircraft brokerage company and also a dealer. We're licensed as an aircraft dealer, a retailer of aircraft in Illinois and Florida. We used to be in California, but we didn't have a lot of inventory action. That means we're allowed to hold inventory of airplanes. But for the most part, we broker airplanes. We represent both buyers and sellers under contract as a fiduciary. So we only act in the best interest of our client. And we have a big team of sales reps around the United States and some even overseas. And we do about 40 transactions per year.
Would you say this is kind of like being a real estate agent? Is it comparable?
It's a bit like being a real estate agent with a very significant difference. A real estate agent is kind of shopping for something that one might like. We aren't shopping. Our role is as a fiduciary technical consultant. It doesn't matter who sources it. Our client could find the plane one night on the internet. It just came on the market. And he'll email it over to the team that's working with him. Hey, what do you guys think of this one? And we dive in. And then we will go into the history of that plane, intense logbook reviews. And pre-internet days, people used to kind of hide damage by, they will tell that, they'll say it's in there, but these long, big cursive entries in an airframe book. And we go very carefully, we read every word. We'll see, for example, I'm making this up now, but Piper part number PA62-8 replaced with serviceable unit. It's buried in there, and we go, what is that part? And then we find out it was a wing. And it's just kind of, or a horizontal stabilizer.
Like, oh, that matters.
It matters. So we see ourselves as a technical consultant more than a shopper.
That makes absolute sense. And as Amy mentioned, it's pretty opaque, so you've got to have a little bit of that transparency. Kendrick, flipping over to you, you actually joined Airplanes USA fairly recently through personal experience. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so we started flying a couple years ago, and we had obviously we were new to the market. We didn't know what to look for. We bought an airplane. Turned out not to be the right airplane for us. We had to sell that airplane, and then we bought what we thought was the right airplane. Then again, it was not. We got it, and there ended up being quite a few issues that didn't fit us very well. Some things that didn't value it to us as well as we wanted for what we needed it for. And then we found Airplanes USA. I called them. I just saw a plane on the market. I called them, and we went through the process. Very simple, very easy. They had a lot of information that I had no idea what it meant, anything like that. Ended up with it, and we've been flying that for about a year. And then after that, I called Steve, and I was like, man, I'd like to do this. This is a lot of fun. It's really cool to be able to help people out. That's why I do it. So that's why I'm here.
Could you talk a little bit about how you got into aviation, when that happened? And it was kind of a family experience for Kendrick, and I think this is a really cool story.
Yeah, it's something my great uncle and my uncles have always done. It's something I've always wanted to do. And we were sitting around the dinner table one night with the family, and you're like, well, why aren't we doing this? Why not just do it? So we hopped into it, and it's been no looking back ever since.
Yeah.
So.
And you learned to fly along with your dad and brothers.
Yeah, my dad and my brother, we all did it together.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
Oh, we love it. That's kind of the continuous story that we've heard on this desk all week, right? Is this family history of aviation, which drives you to being successful in a subset that maybe you didn't know you could be successful in. So Steve, coming back to you, the whole entire point behind Airplanes USA, as you mentioned, is to become that true client to agent relationship. When you're looking at setting those up, and it's also a point of determining fit, right? You've got to find the right client that's a fit for you, and the client has to make sure as an agent you're the correct fit. Right. How does that process go, and where do you guys really work to find the majority of your clients?
Well, we will be contacted by a prospective client. They oftentimes, and remember, we sell a lot of airplanes too. Yeah. So we're talking mostly about the acquisition side, but a lot of our transactions we're representing the airplane for sale. But on the acquisition side, we'll be contacted by someone who's become frustrated with the process or overwhelmed. They don't really know what they're looking at. They're afraid that they're going to make a mistake. And so we'll evaluate their mission. What are you going to do with the airplane? What is its purpose? And then oftentimes I will assign that particular project to one of my sales reps who has expertise in that type of airplane or that paradigm. And then we work together as a team. And oftentimes we will have the aircraft's future mechanic who's going to maintain this airplane in the future, and that's very important. We involve him in that process as well. And then we work, of course, on sourcing the plane, even though the client can be the one that actually did. But we really dig into its history, its condition, and then, of course, its value when it's time to make an offer. We only close through escrow. There's some big escrow companies in Oklahoma City. And we really, not refuse, but we really don't want to close an aircraft transaction outside of escrow. And we recommend that buyers don't do that either. You shouldn't give a deposit to a private party. The deposit should be given to an escrow agent. It could be an attorney, a law office, but we like to use the escrow companies in Oklahoma City. The money moves by wire transfer only. There's title work involved. There's title searches involved. It's not uncommon for there to be old liens on these airplanes that from 30 or 40 years ago. And there may not actually be any money owed, but the bank never told the FAA to remove it. That's not uncommon, so the escrow process cleans all of that up.
So a lot of this, as you mentioned, is not super clear industry-wide, but that's where you guys come in, is to provide this picture of transparency. When you're looking at industry changes that need to be made to the airplane buying process, what do you think are some of those big-time changes that could really help people who are buying a plane for the first time not only feel very confident in their purchasing decision, but also feel confident in the fact that they can relate in this industry that they're stepping into?
I think people have a lot of trepidation when they're buying an airplane, unlike some other industries that are regulated by state statute, disclosures. The airplane sales industry is largely governed by simple contract law. And as a result, it's not a violation of law to keep a secret necessarily, although there's some caveats to that. We demand disclosure, we demand transparency, and I think people start to feel very comfortable when they realize that even when we're selling the airplanes, if an airplane has light hail marks on the top of it, or it has missing logbooks, or it has an old gear up landing, we put that in our advertisement. And people see that, and if they're not going to buy an airplane that has hail marks on it, they don't call us. That helps everybody. We've kind of screened them out. But it's the total transparency that makes this work well, and I think has helped our reputation.
I'd like to ask how you first got started in this business. What was the path that you followed to decide that you wanted to help people buy aircraft?
It actually kind of happened accidentally. I had purchased an A36 Bonanza, my first airplane, and I was in my late 30s at the time. And I had met a lot of these airplane brokers, and some of them were kind of eccentric characters that I really, it was appealing to me, it was intriguing to me, it seemed like a lot of fun. And but I kept the airplane in Kenosha, Wisconsin at the time, and there was a flight school there at Kenosha, and I have a CFI that I've kept current for 30 years, and so I started starting to do a little bit of flight instruction with part-time on the side with the flight school, and they were trying to sell an airplane. And the son of the owner of the flight school, he and I sold the airplane fairly quickly, and we said that was easy. and then there was a Cessna 210 sitting on the ramp, and it had a for sale sign in the window that was sun faded.
You're like, this has been here for a long time.
And I said to my partner at the time, who became my partner later, I go, what's the story with that? And he says, oh, that's Jim's airplane. He's been trying to sell it forever. And I said, let's call him. And we called him and said, would you, we're just going to do some experimenting with airplane sales here. Would you allow us to sell your airplane for a commission? He goes, oh, that'd be wonderful, boys, if you could do that. And we sold his airplane and another, and that grew into a business.
So, Kendrick, coming back to you, you mentioned a little bit about your story getting here through that personal experience. What do you do now with Airplanes USA, and how does your personal experience of getting here really relate to helping you succeed in your role?
Yeah, so I'm an agent of Airplanes USA, and I'm a fiduciary on my client's behalf. And so my experience, I feel like, brings a lot of value to the table, because we had quite a bit of hard times with getting an airplane that finally fit us. And it's pretty frustrating to not have somebody on your side through the process.
Tell us about your very first airplane purchase.
So we got the first airplane we bought was a Bonanza as student pilots. Well, that's obviously too much for student pilots. In our case it was, so we had to get rid of that airplane, and then we moved into an Archer. But the whole thing, it was just a massive learning curve. There's a lot of extra money spent, a lot of things that were very frustrating, pairing up with a good mechanic, figuring out what matters, what doesn't, all those types of things. And that's why now my experience with working with clients is fantastic, because I get to remember that frustration and help them out and hopefully save them from a lot of that, they don't have to go through. So that's a lot of fun.
So you mentioned, Steve, that a lot of the airplane sales space is governed by contract law. And that's kind of where you guys come in to provide some of that transparency and clarity as well, right?
Well, I'm not an attorney. I don't want to start talking about the law.
Full disclosure here, we're not attorneys. Don't take this as legal advice.
But the transparency is what I'm talking about, also the exclusivity.
Right.
So we believe, unlike real estate, where a commission is paid by a seller and shared between two agents, and we could talk about conflict of interest associated with that, on and on and on. That's not how we operate. We believe that the only individual who compensates us should be the person who hired us.
Right.
And is our client with an agency relationship. We will only act in that person's best interest. They are paying us to do that, and we don't see any conflict of interest in such a thing. And occasionally, if it's a percentage of the purchase price, a client could perceive conflict of interest. He can say, well, if it's more money than you, so in that case, we'll just go to a flat fee.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to other services that you guys provide, you also talked to me a little bit yesterday about import and export. Can you touch a little bit on that?
The internet has flattened the earth.
Yes.
and it used to be that aircraft sales was regional and seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
Things slowed up in Minnesota in the wintertime, and the springtime was when a lot of airplanes got sold. The internet changed that. All of a sudden, we got inquiry, even with the previous business, which was from the flight school. I had someone call me up and say, can you export a plane to Poland? And the truth was, I kind of knew how, but I immediately said, yeah, we can do it. And then I found out how to do it. And we went to the Milwaukee FSDO, and we got help from them, and they showed us how to actually export the airplane. And so we did this again. We sent one to, believe it or not, Slovenia. We sent one down to Guatemala, and we started to learn how to do this. And there's two sides to it. There's the FAA side, with registrations and airworthiness certificates, and then deregistering the airplane from the U.S. registry. But very important is the U.S. Census Bureau, U.S. Department of Commerce side. It's a Cessna 182 flying under its own power, but it could be a 40-foot container full of computers or auto parts, and you are exporting that from the United States. And this is something that's very important, and if there's any military application for the airplane, this opens up a whole new set of rules. There are some airplanes like a Cessna 337 Skymaster. There was a military variant of it, of course. So if we are to sell one of those airplanes to a foreign country, we actually have to get a clearance from the U.S. Department of Commerce. And if there was no military, if there was no civilian variant, it was purely a military airplane, then we actually need a State Department clearance.
Wow.
And as a funny story, we brokered one of these Grand Champion L-19 bird dogs a number of years ago. One of our reps in Florida was representing the airplane, and we had a buyer for it in New Zealand. Well, there never was a civilian version of the L-19, even though it's not an airplane that's going to cause heinous acts. It's a pancake breakfast air show airplane, but there was a technicality because there was no civilian version of it. So we technically had to get a State Department clearance, but what we did was we contacted the Department of Commerce field office in Chicago, explained the situation to them. They have the authority to treat it as dual use. And so he said, send me pictures of this plane, send me information of this plane. And then about 3 weeks later, he came back and said, the State Department said you can treat this as dual use, so you're good to go.
So it kind of seems like I'm a supply chain nerd at heart, right? I love supply chain. It kind of seems like when you're talking about international brokerage and international sales like that, you are both treating the airplane as a commodity and having to go through, as you mentioned, commerce and customs, but also as this financial transaction. What are some of the biggest other challenges that come with that, just besides working through the government, which we know is never fast, working with other regulations and especially foreign regulations, getting it into its final home?
We hire a freight forwarder, and we have one in Florida. We like to work with international freight experts, Steve Aaron and his wife Christine. We've been using them for years and years, and that's their expertise. They're licensed, so we hire them, and they assist us in all of that process because that's not our business. But when planes come into the United States from a foreign country, you have to use a U.S. customs broker.
Right.
And there's merchandise processing fees, and there's not duty on airplanes that come into the United States, but there are fees, and there has to be a bond. The importer has to be bonded. They can buy a one-time bond. But again, that's not our business, and we kind of sub that out to a customs broker.
So, Kendra, going back to you again, we're obviously here at Oshkosh, and you have the largest confluence of pilots in, I think, the world right now, honestly. It gives a really good opportunity to check out airplanes that might be coming up for sale soon. It gives an opportunity to connect with potential clients and to really see where that next need to provide the service is. What are some of your goals coming to a show like this when it comes to maybe either client relationship building or just getting to see what could be hitting the market soon?
I don't know if I have really any goals that I sat down and wrote out, but I love meeting people. I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. That to me is why I do it. I love people. I love meeting people, networking with. I mean, you meet so many great people from all over the world. I mean, I've met people here from other countries, you know, my local state, all over the place. So if I can help anybody out in that process, this is a great place to do it and a great place to meet them. I think it's fantastic.
So, Amy, I got to know. Now sitting here talking to these guys, are you confident in your decision to maybe eventually, probably, possibly buy an airplane?
That is hard to say. It's such a big commitment. You know, when you buy an airplane, it's not like buying a house or buying a car. You know, you're not just buying a piece of property, you're buying a piece of history. Right. And you really have to know that you can commit to taking care of that airplane because it has a story, it's got a future, it's going to go on to someone else if you take care of it. And, you know, I am just not quite ready for that. I look forward to the day that I can possibly buy an airplane. So.
I think that I look forward to that day too, but then it comes with like hangar space and where do I keep it and how do I maintain it, and then, you know, your partner's like, you're flying every single day and I'm not with you, and then it's just all down the road. And you guys don't help with relationship counseling that comes with buying an airplane, do you?
We'll sub that out too.
We sub that out to the real professionals. All right, we're going to move down the line here, and I'm going to ask you guys about maybe some of your favorite planes that are out there. Kendrick, I'll start with you. Obviously, your own aircraft is going to be one that you absolutely love. Starting there, tell me a little bit about the one that you own and what are some of your favorite features, why you love to fly it.
So I fly a Bonanza A36, and I love the airplane because of its versatility, and just they're built really solid. I like everything about it. It's got 6 seats. You know, we can load up my brothers and my friends. We can go on adventures. But there's a lot of good airplanes out there. I like the Kit Fox is one of my favorite airplanes in that category, and I hope to be able to have one of those someday. You know, the great thing about airplanes is the good one for you is the one that fits your mission.
Right.
And finding that and figuring out what that is takes a little while. So it might change for me sometime.
We're going to open this up, and this is a purely hypothetical question, but you know what? We're all big dreamers here, so here's the question for you. If you could own any airplane, we're talking business jet, we're talking GA plane, we're talking small plane, we're talking glider, we're talking commercial aircraft, what would you want to own? And you don't have to pay for any of it.
Yeah.
No, price is not an option. Paying for maintenance is not an option. Just your dream aircraft.
Right now, a PC-12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I flew in one of those for the first time a couple months ago. It was
Really?
pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very versatile, fantastic machines. I mean, they're short runway performers. I like adventure. I like getting outdoors. I like flying into gravel strips. I like that kind of thing. Loading up a bunch of camping equipment in the back. You know, I can load whatever I want to in the back of there. Load up 5 friends and go somewhere for a week, and yeah, that's probably my dream airplane right now.
And then you know what? Take it a step further and go to the PC-24 and take the business jet on unapproved runways.
That's right.
Why not?
Yeah,
there we
exactly.
go. All right, Amy, run into you. You don't own an airplane yet, but you do fly one pretty consistently. What are you flying right now?
I fly a Cessna 172, and it's from the 70s.
It's a piece of history.
It is a piece of history. It's a piece of my history.
We love her.
We do, absolutely.
And so what is your favorite part about flying the 172?
I feel like you can trust the 172. It's a very stable airplane. It's a great airplane for student pilots because you really have to work to get into difficult situations in that airplane. So I feel like the airplane takes care of me. If I pay attention to my lessons and I fly responsibly, I feel like it's going to take care of it.
It's like a mom's hug. Like you always know that you can come back to it, and it's going to welcome you in with some nice comfy seats and a little bit of space and make you feel good when you maybe do some things that aren't so smart.
And I think I have an unusual experience as a student too. I have an instructor, single instructor flight school. He owns one airplane, and so I've really gotten to know that airplane over the past 2 years. A lot of student pilots fly at bigger flight schools. They fly whatever aircraft is available that day. So you might be in one airplane one day, another airplane another day. And there are some advantages to that, but I feel really secure in the 172 that I fly.
I love it. So are we going to own a 172 one day, or are we going to branch out?
I would love to own a 172. I think there's a lot of advantages to that. Among them is availability of parts. If you need repairs,
Is it the Toyota Camry of the skies?
I've actually made that analogy before. That's pretty accurate.
I love it. All right, let's ask your dream airplane to own. Again, totally cost prohibitive, totally without any restrictions on maintenance or storage or the ability to fly it. What's your dream?
There's so many. I really love Stinson 108s.
Yeah.
I think they're beautiful. They're still affordable. They're relatively stable in the air. I also love the newer airplanes that I will never be able to afford, like a Diamond or a Tecnam. And dream plane would probably be a Waco. Any of the Wacos. I think they're all gorgeous.
All right, Steve, we're going to move on to you to take us home. Do you own any planes right now yourself? If so, what are you owning and what are you flying regularly?
I've owned many airplanes over the years. Honestly, I don't know how many. Some of them I've owned for 10 years, and some of them I've owned for about 5 minutes through escrow. I had an A36 Bonanza for 10 years, and my daughter named it Freddie. I've had Debonaires, I've had V-tail Bonanzas, I had a Piper Lance for about 7 or 8 years in California, and a whole bunch of Piper Arrows, but the 2 airplanes we own right now, Airplanes USA, we have an office at Schaumburg Airport in the Chicago suburbs. They have an airplane that they use as a runaround plane. They currently have a Beechcraft Sierra that's owned by Airplanes USA. And then in California and San Carlos Airport, that's where I live, I have a beautiful little Piper Archer that is my runaround plane in Northern California.
There you go. So when it comes to, here we go, here come the fighter jets again, but I think we're okay. When it comes to your dream airplane to own, and maybe I'll open it up, your dream airplane to broker too, what would that be?
Right now we have a CJ3 for sale. That's a different dynamic than when we're selling Cessna 182s. It's very much the same process, but there's a few little differences that happen. That's fun to do. We're doing that right now. I had a client who's a very dear friend of mine now. I've been with him on many transactions. He was a client that became my friend. And he bought, his last airplane was a 2018 TBM 930. And when he bought it, I was his agent, I represented him. And he got 2 training certificates for that airplane, and he gave me one. So he and I went to school together at Simcom in Orlando. And then I became his underinsurance guidance with a clause of waiver of subrogation. They allowed me to fly with him and I ended up 60 or 65 hours with him. And I found interesting instrument approaches up in Missoula, Montana, and Medford, Oregon. And in San Diego, there's a localized approach with almost a 7-degree descent angle. I said, Mark, let's go fly this approach.
Wow.
He wanted to learn how to go in and out of the U.S., so we went and had lunch at North Eleuthera in the Bahamas one day. And so I kind of fell in love with that airplane.
There we go. And we got about a minute and a half left, so we're going to wrap it up. Before we let you go, rumor has it that you fly an airliner. Would you own that one? Tell me what it is and would you own it? If you could.
I'm currently, this is not part-time. It's full-time for all of us. We all have 2 jobs.
Yeah.
But I am a 777 captain for a major U.S. carrier, and I've always done this on the side. And if I could buy a 777, no, I think the maintenance expenses are too high.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Fuel also too. And to be fully transparent, I'd want a space shuttle. Like, come on, it's anything that flies. I would want a space shuttle. That's a great answer.
I take back my answer.
There you go. We all want a space shuttle, or I would absolutely take an F-15. Those things are so cool. So cool. One of my really good friends from college, she just got commissioned to fly F-15s out of San Jose in California, and she's thrilled about it. So I would love that opportunity.
Fantastic.
There you go. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for Plane and Pilot. I love it. We've got 3 pilots and a wannabe here who's just pretending like she flies because she actually doesn't. But I'm glad to be up here sharing the desk with some awesome talents,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you also for sticking it here with Oshkosh Live with us. Thank you to Redbird Flight one more time for being our presenting sponsor here today. And maybe they'll get me in a sim and then I can start my process to learning how to fly that space shuttle eventually. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Mark Cook. He's coming up with his kit plane segment in just a few minutes.
It's happening. Okay. It's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag. Yeah. What?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Next. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Trashed?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
We do it all. We do it all.
Hundreds of majors, an amazing campus, faculty mentors. You can find what you're looking for at Middle Tennessee State, the University of Opportunities. We do it all.
Tempest plays a vital role in the industry, and in today's world, we are the leading spark plug and oil filter manufacturer for general aviation. We've been able to not only release new products, but we've taken legacy products and created innovations. We take great pride, not only from a design standpoint, but from a manufacturing standpoint, all the way down to making sure the customer is satisfied with the product. Quality, innovation, performance. Tempest.
Hi, Mark Cook with Kit Planes Magazine, our Built to Fly segment for Oshkosh Airventure 2024. We're here in the Redbird Pavilion. Before we get started, I want to thank Tempest and Eventpo for helping us out with this series. It's been a lot of fun this week. Got another day alive and a whole lot more content coming up. But right now, I'm sitting here with Michael Via, who's the new CEO of Vans Aircraft. If you're a home build enthusiast, you know that Vans has had a little bit of a rocky road here for the last 6 months or so. We have the opportunity to talk to Michael and get a little bit of background on what happened and I think more importantly, what's going on. Michael, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So for those of us who haven't really been following this as deeply as I have, unfortunately, walk us through what's been happening with Vans since October of last year.
Since October of last year, I was invited into Vans to take a look to help them. We quickly assessed the problem was one that we had to get on top of quickly. The company filed for bankruptcy in November. We had literally record time to get through bankruptcy because of the support of the customers. And we emerged from bankruptcy in June 1st. So the company's out of bankruptcy in record time, again, because of the support of the customers.
So as I understand, the cause of that was really kind of I hate the term perfect storm, but kind of a perfect storm of COVID, of increased demand, and a few other things that sort of set it back. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I agree it's a kind of a cliche to say that, but it's true. When you look at when COVID hit, everybody went home, everyone wanted to build and accelerate their projects, so the orders just ramped up. And in the process of that, the company got hit with a corrosion problem because a supplier had to substitute materials because they couldn't get materials during COVID. And then on top of that, they had an outside supplier use a process that was different than the process that the company uses internally. And those things stacked up to millions of dollars and concern for the customers, and they put their brakes on, and all of that stacking up between COVID, trying to chase the increased sales, and those two things back to back, it was put the company in a situation that it couldn't recover from.
So obviously that's a cash flow problem. It's a little bit of a logistics problem internally. A lot of things that sort of need to be fixed. Now I know that you guys have been talking about process control and a lot of things that are kind of boring for the kit builder, but are really important for the business side. Kind of bullet point what that process is for you. What are you working on primarily?
Well, I like to say things. My background is I was a customer of a kit plane company that went bankrupt back in the early 2000s, and I became the president of that company. So I understand what happened to all the customers, and I approach things like that. So the way I talk about it is fix the problems for your customers. And how do you fix the problems for your customers? You solve the back orders, you get your quality back to where it needs to be, you shorten your lead times, and then internally, how do you do that? The company had an MRP system, ERP system that wasn't functional. We're going to install a new MRP, ERP system. We're getting the right people in the right places in the company. The company has a lot of great employees. A lot of them were overtaxed with too much on their plate. So we're hiring, we're moving people into the positions that they're best suited for, and we're bringing in people, processes, and systems so that something like that can't happen again.
So does that sort of underpin the idea that a lot of builders are concerned that Vans will get itself back into the situation that it found itself in before? So are those processes really built up to keep it from sort of making the same mistakes again?
Absolutely. The reality of the situation at Vans was they were operating because of the growth with a system that broke, so they really didn't even know what they had in stock in certain areas. So let's say you had 30 right doors for an RV10 and only one. It's because the system was broken and they really couldn't get on top of it because they were scrambling to get all these orders. So I've hired a new COO, Sean L. He's experienced in doing this, putting in place systems and focusing on quality. We've broken out the engineering team. I don't know if we've talked about that. They had one engineering team that got cut in half during COVID because people retired, didn't come back to the company, and such a smaller team had to do everything for the company, sustaining engineering, and also development of the RV-15. Yeah. So what we've done now is we've broken that out to where there's a development team that can focus solely on the RV-15, and then we have a new team that's growing that's going to focus on quality, manufacturing engineering, and sustaining engineering.
That's great. Now, we'll get back to the RV-15 in a second, but as I understand, there's a lot of work literally on the plant floor to try to improve efficiencies there. But in your presentation yesterday, you guys talked about there's a lot of additional deliveries of kits. You guys are catching up on replacement laser cut parts. It seems like from the functioning side of the company, getting parts out the door, that you guys are making real progress.
Making huge progress. I don't want to get too deep into this, but you know, when the company filed for bankruptcy, they had 85% of the customers who had orders at the time the company filed for bankruptcy, they said, we want to reorder. And they had to pay a higher price to do that, to get through that process. And of those 85% that reordered, we've shipped over 45% of their kits already, and I expect we'll have shipped all of those by the end of the year. And then, like you mentioned, the laser cut parts. We've contacted people who are impacted by laser cut parts, and we're on the path. When I say we contact them, we know what they want, then we know what they need, and we've shipped 45% or more of those. And again, I expect that close to the end of the year, everyone that had laser cut parts that needs replacements will have them.
That's a lot of progress for really a pretty big problem that you guys had to remedy. And as I understand,
because of the employees stepping up, it's been unbelievable for me to walk in and see the dedication of the employees, taking on additional jobs, staying late, working weekends. It's been crazy. They want to support the customers.
And I don't think anybody had the idea that they didn't feel that. I felt it seems from the outside that it was such an almost insurmountable amount of work and sort of stress that to find a path through has got to feel really good for these guys. Does that inform the culture at all? Is that part of your mandate to see if you can bring that culture together and have everybody pull together?
Yeah, you know, it's always tricky to be the new guy coming in and you say that one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to change the culture, but at the same time you have to keep the culture that everybody loves in the company, because there's a lot about the culture of Vans that the customers expect that needs to be maintained, and that we intend to do that. So, but at the same time, the culture in the company was kind of a people-based. In other words, you knew something, but there wasn't processes or training materials so that if you transferred to another position, that the next person coming to that position would be trained in that. So we're changing the culture in terms of process-based company and training-based company and systems-based company.
So all that kind of pulls together. And I think what people need to recognize is Vans is really a manufacturing company. I mean, you design airplanes, but your primary goal is to build parts that people put together and build airplanes. So it's got to be part of that. That's part of the metric.
Yes.
I love one-word answers. They're fantastic. So let's move on to the RV-15. It's not here this year. As we understand, it's still undergoing development. Kind of bring us up to speed on where that project is.
So we didn't bring it this year because it's the development team, what they're focused on is getting it right. They're not wanting to hurry it. And so I think you're aware of this. We're playing around with wing position, moving the wing. We're playing around with what type of tail do we want on it. So it's currently in a condition they've been cutting and hacking and moving things that if we brought it here, it would create more questions than it would answers.
Right.
But it's all part of the process of getting it right. And I will tell you this, though, we've taken Ryan and his team and taken a lot of the burden off their back of doing all of the engineering. We're growing that side of the business so that we have the sustaining and the quality teams focusing over there so that Ryan and his team can focus on the development of the RV-15. So we're hoping it's going to be accelerated.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning that for a lot of kit companies, And we've seen this in lots of kit companies. You get it most of the way there, and it's a safe airplane, it's a pretty good airplane, you put it out into the world. That's not how Vans is appearing to take this on. It's like you have specific goals and standards that you want for the airplane. You're not going to stop until you get there.
Yeah, this company is really focused on getting the RV-15 right. There's so much excitement for it. Everyone wants to have it out, but the engineering team is saying we're going to get it right. It's more important to get it right than to get it out early. And like you say, sometimes if you rush it, then you get to spend a lot of time chasing service bulletins and things like that. We don't want to do that.
Well, it's the first airplane of that configuration you've ever done. So what's the old joke? You only get one chance to make a good first impression. So let's move on.
We know you're going to love yours when you get yours.
Exactly right. So last thing, so let's talk about the RV-10 that's out here. That is the prototype RV-10. It's been around. We've seen it for years, since 2003, right? Yeah. And it got a pretty serious makeover for the show. What's behind that?
Well, the airplane is used, you probably know this, most of the people out there don't know it. That airplane has been used daily for years as a training airplane, taking people to grass strips and things like that. And it's our demonstrator, the original prototype. And what we decided to do was to go through it, clean it up, and make it look like what we think most of our customers are doing over at their RVs. So we had Evoque help us with a paint scheme, and we painted it in-house. Our team worked like crazy for the last 6 weeks around the clock to get it done, and we put an all-new interior in it. And what we wanted to do was, we wanted to come to the show and show people what we think our product deserves to look like, that most of our customers, we walk around, I walk through 600 and something RVs here, and I look at all the RV-10s, and we finally have an RV-10 in our booth that looks like a lot of what our customers are doing.
Definitely the airplane has evolved from being what Dick envisioned as a very simple, light, almost spare airplane into builders are making it their own. And I agree with you. I've seen way more really high-end RV-10s that are as nice as any Cirrus inside than I have the spare ones. So that's sort of the natural evolution of things.
I want to say one thing on that. Because we offer that, doesn't mean that the guys who want the lightweight model can still do it. Yeah. But we wanted to show you can have it either way, however you want it.
Yeah. So as I understand, you got a lot of parallel programs. You're working on all the manufacturing stuff. You've got the RV-15 in process, and I'm sure there's other things that you're looking forward to build out the line. But it sounds to me like job one is to get the business stable and in good health.
What we have to do is we have to re-earn the trust of the customers, and the way we do that is by doing what we say we're going to do. So we're going to focus on the customers, get the parts to the customers, reduce the backlog, reduce the build time, improve our quality.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Well, and I think truly most builders really want you to succeed at that. I mean, I think you've seen here, you've talked to builders who were at the banquet last night.
Unbelievable.
The goodwill for the company is really, really strong. And of course, it's rooted in, well, I have an RV. I want the value to stay up because I want Vans to stay in business. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think this is, I hate to call it a religion, but there's that through line that it's more than just an assemblage of parts, because guys put a lot of their own souls into it. And I'm sure that has to sort of impact some of your thinking.
Yeah, I think I told you before we walked up here, I parked my car in the lot and I walked through, I don't want to say 1,000, but 100, 600, 800 RVs to come here to meet with you. And it's humbling. And then when we face these customers who've been through so much for the last 2 years, 3 years, and we walk in to see them for the first time, and we have to tell them, we know we've let you down, we acknowledge it, and we apologize, they clapped.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing, the loyalty that these customers have to this company and to Dick Van Grinsven.
And I think on top of that, when the company's healthy, there's replacement parts available. There are a lot of things that make the insurance companies happy, and it really, it improves the ownership experience, which I think also is important, because we're seeing people come in buying used RVs, and they may not have had the desire to build their own or the time to build their own, so they're coming into that through that channel. And having factory support is really critically important for that kind of builder, or owner, I should say.
I'm blown away that there's 11,000-ish flying RVs. That's a lot of airplanes, and they're changing hands each year, and some people didn't have the building experience
Yeah.
But the owners out there all need support, whether they're the original builder or not. And there's so much of a community in this vans aviation, world.
Yeah.
You can't go to an airport where you can't find an RV and then the owner's willing to help you.
Right. There's one at every airport, I guarantee it. That's good. Michael, I appreciate your time. This has been a good look into what Vans is facing and up to, and I think a positive outlook for the future where the company is going, and it feels good to say, you're on the path to recovery, and you got processes in place, and we hope the best for you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us come out, and if you're out here, come by our booth and see our RV10.
Awesome. All right, we're going to hop over to check out the Jim Richmond Foundation. Going to talk to Brad Daum from Cub Crafters, Joe Dory, and Mark Patey. Tell us a little bit about this program that aims to support backcountry flying by keeping backcountry strips viable. Here it is.
All right, hey everybody, my name is Brad Daum, and I am here with Joe Dory and Mark Patey, and we're here to talk about the Jim Richmond Backcountry Aviation Foundation. It's a new 501c3 organization, and it's dedicated to expanding backcountry aviation access, public backcountry aviation access. We want to make it so there are more places in the backcountry for people to fly these wonderful airplanes to have great experiences, fishing and hiking and camping and spending time outdoors with their kids and doing all that sort of stuff. So that's what we're about. That's what we're here to talk about today. And Joe, why don't you tell us about the first property that we've been able to open to the public, the 45 Ranch, because you've been there.
I have been there. The 45 Ranch is just north of the Nevada border, in the corner of Idaho. So it's Oregon, Nevada, and Idaho. So we're right in the very corner. The 45 Ranch is in the very corner. It's a fantastic property with very desert surrounding, but it's a little oasis. The runway is as green as can be and beautiful. The lodge is spectacular. There's the fishing spectacular. The hunting it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. So.
Jim Richmond's idea was if there was a 501c3, a nonprofit that could hold the assets in perpetuity so that people could use and nobody could change a law or have an opinion change that just takes it away, that we can have backcountry airstrips protected forever. And now we've got 3. Right? Or one runway and 2 that will be done up here pretty quick.
So we've got 1 runway that's open to the public now. Yep. We've got 2 runways on an adjoining piece of BLM land that we're going to have back in service before the end of the year. And then we've got another piece of property that was donated to us, another ranch in Nevada, the Star Valley Ranch, which we're going to develop aviation access on next year as our first big project in 2025. How do we fund this whole thing? Charitable organizations have held raffles for many years. The Jim Richmond Backcountry Aviation Foundation is a 501c3. We're a tax-exempt public charity, and we applied for and received a charitable gaming license from the state of Idaho. Everybody here had to pass a background check because we're all on the board of directors to make that happen. And having that charitable gaming license, what that allows us to do is raffle off this amazing airplane right here. This is Carbon Cub serial number 1. It is the airplane that really legitimized Jim Richmond as a backcountry aviation entrepreneur. It's an airplane that contributed a lot to the growth of Cub Crafters, and this whole idea of all of these Cub clones that everybody does nowadays, that's really grown the whole entire sport of recreational aviation in the backcountry. In a very real sense, it started with this airplane right here.
And I think it's important to point out that there's nothing that's being done with this raffle to say that this raffle versus another raffle in aviation, they've all been done. You should be supporting all of them. But there is something unique that we tried to do with this raffle was to say, hey, look, there are people that have won an airplane and then they can't afford the tax. Like if they won this airplane, there's $53,000 in tax that has to be paid against your winning. I hate for someone to put a couple $100 down, buy 4 tickets or 5 tickets, at the $50 a ticket plus discounts if you buy more, but then win it and then sell it. And so that's something that is unique, that if you win this, we're prepared to pay the tax, so you actually get the airplane and hopefully get to keep it and fly it for a long,
And
long
enjoy
time.
it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was important to us. Again, this idea that it should be accessible, or as accessible as anything in aviation can be to everybody out there. And so, yeah, we are, the Jim Richmond Foundation is grossing up the amount of the prize to pay the federal tax on it, so that the winner doesn't walk away with a huge tax bill when we draw the winning ticket, which will be in June of next year. Unless we sell out sooner.
If you sell out tickets sooner, so don't wait till June to buy tickets, because I suspect if people love backcountry the way we do, the tickets will sell quick. They're already selling quick.
They're already selling quick. I mean, we've been live for 3 days, and we've people already bought over $30,000 worth of tickets to support backcountry aviation and want to have a chance to win this airplane. So the website is www.jrbaf.org. And you can learn more about the 45 Ranch on the website. You can become a member on the website. You can buy a raffle ticket on the website. Someday we'll have some hats, we'll have some t-shirts, we'll have some swag. We're not quite there yet. And we'd really love people to come out and experience the 45 Ranch and just join us in the backcountry. Joe, you'll be out there. I'm sure Mark, you'll be out there this fall, and we'll have some fun.
Absolutely.
And welcome back to the Kit Plane segment, Built to Fly, here at the Redbird Pavilion. And again, thanks to Avemco and Tempest for helping us out and keeping us on the straight and narrow here. You saw the pictures of the 45 Ranch. I got to tell you, I had a chance to drop in and fly around that. It's an amazing facility, and I think what they're going to be trying to do with the Richmond Foundation is really important. I think a lot of backcountry flyers will appreciate having that kind of support and preservation. And by the way, it's a really nice place to visit. So moving on, I've got my good friend Larry Anglisano, who's the editor-in-chief of Aviation Consumer Magazine. Also ran an avionics shop for 25 years. That long ago, Larry? And I kind of consider him my go-to expert on avionics, and especially in the experimental realm. You're building an RV-12 in the partnership, so you've got that perspective. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the avionics market overall for the experimental stuff. And would it be fair to say that here at Airventure it's a little bit slow on the new side?
Yeah, I think it's kind of soft compared to what we've seen in previous years. You know, you and I have both been here when there's been almost too much stuff to cover. You know, I think the past couple of years we've seen some lean times. And, you know, I was talking to John Zimmerman over at Sporties this morning, and we were talking a little bit about buying trends. And I asked him if we've reached technology saturation. And he seems to think we haven't, at least from a gadget standpoint, portable avionics and electronic flight bags. But I don't know. I think there's still some more stuff to see in the panel mount market. I'm not quite sure what though. You and I have talked about it.
Yeah, we have.
How can we make these things better?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
Well, it seems like, you know, the units are all really, really good. I mean, if you look at a G3X Touch, a Dynon HDX, the GRT high-end stuff.
Good stuff.
It's mature, the technology is well proven.
And it's reliable.
It is, and that's critically important.
Yeah,
I mean, if you've been part of the experimental scene, you know that we've had some units that, you know, broke some ground, but weren't particularly reliable. And we've come to the point where the feature sets have grown. It's kind of like computers, right? Feature sets have grown, but they're more reliable. And the true cost has come down a little bit. So, you know, if we look at, you know, the big news kind of in panel mounts is Dynon's 12-inch display, which is a little bit of a no-brainer. It's a scaled-up version of the 10, and it kind of makes sense because the panels are getting bigger, right?
Yep. Yeah, and you know, you brought up Dynon, and I think a point worth mentioning is that so much attention is focused on Garmin and Garmin's products, which are good products, and in a way they sort of dominate the market, but you've got to give Dynon, and Avionics for that matter, credit for cranking out good products with a good feature set, reasonable price point. I think the buying decision really comes down to what you're comfortable with. So, you know, if you're building an experimental airplane and you're trying to figure out what to put in this kit, I think it comes down to feature set, what you're comfortable with. And as you and I have talked about plenty of times, maybe the installation effort that goes into putting these things in. You know, you mentioned my early days at the avionics shop. Those days are gone, at least from what I've seen. And I think from an installation complexity standpoint, for somebody doing their own wiring, it's gotten easier.
Yeah.
Why has it gotten easier? And you can answer that.
Well, it has. I mean, it's a lot of the, you know, Garmin kind of still has a little bit of an OEM mentality for some of that stuff. I mean, I wired CAN bus and I wired it wrong in a couple of places, and it's a little bit fussy, but it's all learnable. And I just finished a Dynon HDX installation in my Glass Star. One of the things I love about it is the way they manage both the network and the power. It's all one cable, so it's all really plug and play. And I think we're seeing that, you know, Dynon has that, Advanced Flight has the ACM that controls some of the electrical. So even though it looks more complicated, from the builder standpoint, it's actually a little bit easier because you're not fabricating a lot of things. You're kind of plug and play.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of builders sort of get a little apprehensive about venturing on an avionics project because, face it, you may be good with sheet metal, right? Yeah. You may be good with engine stuff, but when it comes to wiring an avionics harness, well, that's tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Soldering, crimping, and all the important techniques, good techniques that are required to build a good harness. I think manufacturers are making it easier, and I think that's a good thing.
And a lot of that too is the documentation. I mean, Garmin has really good documentation. If you follow it carefully, you're in good shape. And I think an important part of that too is configuration. Some of the biggest errors I see are guys have it wired right, but you go into the menus and it's like, oh no, this box isn't talking to that box, and it's because they don't have it set up right. So.
Well, that's right. Configuration, you got to remember there's a lot of software running around in this stuff with a lot of data ports, and you know, if you don't configure it properly from a software standpoint, you can really end up in a tail chase because it's not configured properly, and now you're tearing into the wiring.
Right.
And even good avionics shops may run down that path. So there's a lot going on, but still I think it's gotten easier because of prefabricated harnesses. And I think Dynon deserves a lot of credit for making the installation easier from a hardware standpoint with hardware that's sort of prefab, right? Magnetometer goes here, you know, AHRS goes here, or whatever it is. Takes a lot of the mystery out of getting this thing right the first time.
And I think we're seeing support from the kit manufacturers too, offering recommendations. I mean, Vans is really good about it. They say the magnetometer goes here, the servos go here. A lot of companies like KitFox is doing a really good job providing, you know, basic harnesses or harness options and brackets and mounts and things for specific things. So they go, you don't have to worry about where this goes. We figured it out for you. So we got just about a minute to go, but I want to ask you a question. If you were king, what software, what hardware, what would you like to see? What's your dream thing that we don't have right now?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to see, just because I'd like to see it, I'd like to see an affordable automatic landing system.
Yep.
And in particular, auto throttle, and that's really the obstacle because it's, you know, sort of an essential part of automatic landing is controlling the throttle in a piston engine. We got it for turbines, but it's something we haven't. I thought we would have seen it by now.
Yeah.
Garmin's AutoLand came out a couple years ago, and we still haven't seen it from a widespread retrofit standpoint. I think the experimental market is the perfect place to bring it.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of builders are willing to experiment with that as well. You know, Dynon just came out with their Glide Advisor version, which I got a demo of, which looks really good. And what I love about that is a free upgrade on software. So it's like I'm like, when's my software? I want to test this stuff. So all the kind of elements are put in place. We just don't have a way to control the engine just yet, and that's kind of my dream. I would love to have some way to control, you know, the engine through the software, mixture, prop, etc. That may be for another day. But Larry, thank you for dropping by. I think it's good to have an expert. I read a lot of stuff, but you know the stuff, and I appreciate it.
What else you want to know, Mark?
What stocks should I buy? Anyway, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that. We're going to move on to the next segment. Russ Niles is here with the Osh Flash. Lots of news. He's been out all morning digging in the weeds for news. Thanks for watching the Kit Plane segment. We'll see you next time.
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Tempest Aero Group is a leading general aviation marketing and distribution company that has partnered with some of the best brands in the industry, including Tempest, Alcor, Marvel Schebler, Precision Air Motive, Consolidated Fuel Systems, and Stratus Tool Technologies. These brands represent high-quality aviation components and tools for OEM and aftermarket applications.
Quality, innovation, performance. Tempest.
Hello everyone and welcome to our ongoing coverage of AirVenture 2024. Russ Niles for Oshflash, which is AvWeb's segment here on Oshkosh Live. There was a cool, well not so cool incident, but an interesting incident over the upper peninsula of Michigan on Sunday. A competitor in the AirVenture Cup blew an engine over Escanaba, Michigan, and because of the fuel that he was running, he caused a lot of rumors and a lot of conspiracy theories over the last couple of days at AirVenture. Here's Andy Finley to explain what really happened.
All right, thanks, Russ. Appreciate the intro. Yeah, so we were out doing the AirVenture Cup and had an engine issue. Going back a little bit, prior to that, a little background on it. We've done a lot of testing with the fuel, so we're running Lyondell VP's UL100E fuel. Back in Virginia, we did almost 6 hours of testing. We went through all the different parameters of what a typical 550 would run. Takeoff power, 40 inches, 2,700 RPM, did cruise points, did lean and peak points. With my SDS EFI system, I can run the engine really lean, almost 18-to-1 air-fuel ratio, and be able to advance ignition timing and things like that. So did a lot of robust testing. We also did part of the FAA plan with that was part 3351. We did their operational tests, including cold starts, hot starts, and making sure everything passed that. And the fuel's been running great. Temperatures have been really good. Really hard to tell much difference in my operation between the two, and been successful so far. Once we completed that, we did fly from Virginia to Illinois. We made a fuel stop in Poplar Grove and did it on the unleaded fuel there. We had fuel staged there and flew up to Wausau to start the AirVenture Cup. On the beginning of the AirVenture Cup, everything was running good. Temperatures were good. Power setting was 36 inches of manifold pressure and 2,700 RPM. For those that know my airplane, that's just cruising. That airplane is capable of much more manifold pressure. In Reno, we'll see close to triple digits when we're running out there. So very nominal power setting. We did a presentation this morning at Forum 11 there with the VP Lyondell team, and we showed all our flight data. So leading up to the event, all the CHTs were stable, EGTs were stable. Just before the event, you can see oil pressure start to drop about 4 psi, and then I got a really bad mechanical noise. A good description. How bad was the mechanical noise? I'll steal a term from some of the guys at work. It sounded like a box of hammers in a washing machine. So it was making a big ruckus up there. When I heard that mechanical noise start, I pulled the power back to idle and started to pitch up for best glide. Knew something was wrong. At that point, the engine started to overspeed, so that loss of oil pressure, somehow we've lost governor control now. The engine oversped to 3,200 RPM, and we showed this in our data. At that, my SDS EFI cuts the fuel and ignition off, so you don't get a gross overspeed that could catastrophically hurt the engine. So it stopped at 3,200 RPM. I did pull the prop to course pitch, but I think it was really the speed that bled off, and then that allowed the prop to slow down. I have my daily driver prop that just goes to course pitch. It doesn't go fully feather. So Kept gliding down. On the way down, I did add a little bit of throttle to see what was left in the engine, and it did have, all the cylinders came back, everything was running smooth, but that mechanical noise just got worse and worse and worse. So closed the throttle, turned off the ignition system, and just continued to glide into Escanaba. Uneventful glide to Escanaba, just watching out for the traffic. There was all the other air racers coming behind me, so made lots of radio calls to make sure we were clear of the traffic, and because it was one of the turn points. Got down safely, coasted off the runway and the taxiway, and brought it into the hangar there. Great group of folks in Escanaba. Like, man, what hospitality they had. So thanks to all those guys up there. It made it an easy transition. We did take the engine apart a little bit. We checked compression. That was all okay. We bore scoped the cylinders. Pistons look great. So you can still see carbon buildup on there. Cylinder walls, you can still see really nice crosshatch. I have, in previous Reno incidences, I have heard some pistons, but this was not one of those incidences. We had good CHT and good EGT, and everything looked really good. So based on the way the crank is moving versus the cam, I think it might be a crank or a camshaft failure, but it's got a really bad backlash in it, making a really bad noise and kind of clunk, but combustion-wise, everything was running really nice.
So you presented all this to a forum with the VP Racing folks today, and you've been out stumping for VP Racing for this fuel. In your opinion, is it a good fuel?
Yeah, it's been great. So yeah, the fuel is good, and like we did in the presentation, we're sharing all the data, being transparent about it, what's going on, and yeah, it's been great so far. I don't see any difference in what we're doing, and it's passed all the tests that we can do through the FAA program, and looking forward to doing more testing and making it happen.
All right. So what's next for you and for your work with VP and the fuel? Where are you going with all this, and what do you hope to see as the outcome?
Yeah, so what they announced in the forum today, they have entered full-scale testing. They made it through that initial testing, and so that'll continue more materials compatibility testing. We're going to do more flight testing with a bunch of different airframes. It covers really all the airframes that are out there, even including some of the round engines. So all that'll be happening next, and then I'll keep running it in my airplane. I have a spare engine that we'll put in there and get that going, and then I'll continue testing that fuel. But so far, it's been really good.
And Reno may not be in the air racing business, but the air racing business is definitely in business, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Air racing is it's a great time to be air racing. So sport class, we were able to get our accreditation in Las Cruces, New Mexico. We had our pylon school out there in May. We certified 3 courses, 4 mile, 6 mile, and an 8 mile course, so we can go full speed, and we're ready to go. So I'm excited to do that. We're going to, after completing our pylon training, we're going to race in October, the 17th through the 20th, and looking forward to doing that this year. So it should be fun.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on today,
Absolutely,
Andy.
Yeah.
It was great to have you. Great to dispel these rumors and nip them right in the bud, just like this.
Glad to talk about it anytime.
So we get to see a lot of prominent people here at Airventure, and the NASA administrator dropped by yesterday. We had the chance to talk to him over at press headquarters, and as far as he's concerned, it's great that there's rockets taking up airspace off Florida. The more rockets, the better, according to Bill Nelson. Russ Niles reporting for AvWeb from Airventure 2024. We get some pretty famous people through here, pretty famous and pretty influential. We're about to talk to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, and he's got some interesting things to say about traffic conflicts with spacecraft and the future in general of the space program. So NASA is on a real roll, Mr. Administrator. There's been launch after launch after launch. Where do we reach saturation, particularly in the busy airspace in Florida? How many launches can we do a year?
Well, SpaceX is intending they're going to do 200 launches this coming year, not just at Kennedy, but that will include Vandenberg as well. And I think that's just the Falcon 9 or the Falcon Heavy. You know, it wasn't too long ago that as the senior senator from Florida, one of my main goals was to get those old abandoned launch pads at the Cape, get them to roar back to life. And they have roared back to life. And if we have a traffic problem now, that's a good problem to have.
Can you give us an update on Starliner and how we're looking in terms of getting it back home?
We are very confident that we will have everything worked out to our satisfaction, that we do not fly until it's safe, and that Butch and Sonny, they will be perfectly all right. So it's been characterized that the two of them are stranded. Far from being stranded, they're having extra time on the International Space Station, which they are loving. And so we'll bring them home when it's right, and I expect that will be, we'll see the flight readiness review probably at the end of next week, so it'll be the week after that. I think that's the time that we're shooting for.
Speaking of politics, how is political support for NASA, and with the possibility of a change in government, do you see any change in mandate for NASA?
First of all, I don't expect, as a friend of you-know-who, I expect the administration, at least part of the administration, to continue next year after the election. But if the administration's changed, it's not going to affect our NASA space program.
Okay, well, this is a democratization of space, and the idea was that it would be spread out among the business community, and that there would be lots of players involved. But SpaceX dominates. Is that an issue going forward, and how do you even the playing field for other companies?
Well, they have been phenomenally successful, and they brought the cost to go into space way, way down. If you're concerned about your implication of your question, that what about the small companies? Well, the fact is that those companies started out as small companies, and look at the success of some of the small companies. Rocket Lab, Firefly. This is the genius of American ingenuity.
But SpaceX does more than 90% of your launches, and are you concerned that there's a monopoly being created, and that SpaceX will become virtually your only partner?
The short answer to your question is no, and the longer answer is, well, look what's coming on. ULA is coming on with their Vulcan. They're going to fly it the second time, and then they'll be rated for Department of Defense payloads. Look what's coming after that, the Blue Origin, Blue Moon. So right there, for larger payloads, you will have a stable of 3 thoroughbreds from which to pick. So that's what competition's all about.
So the X-59, once it reaches later stages of its testing, it'll be flying over different parts of the U.S. to gauge the sound levels at the ground. Are there particular areas that NASA's looking at to have them fly over?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they are studying it so that it will actually go over quite quiet areas of the country instead of a place in the country that's accustomed to jet noise. So they'll do a mixture of a whole bunch. They'll do urban areas, they'll do suburban areas, they'll do rural areas, they'll do wilderness areas, all to see what is the reaction on the ground. If it turns out like we think it's going to turn out, it will be like a muffled kind of muffled sound instead of that bang, bang of the sonic boom that you hear now, which is quite jarring, as you well know.
Welcome back live to Oshkosh. We're very, very privileged to have one of the world's very best aerobatic pilots. Mike Goulian has been at it for 29 years. He doesn't look a day over 29 himself. All that high altitude and high G's is looking good on you, buddy.
I'm trying.
So, how come you're still here, and why is Oshkosh so special for people in your job?
You know, a lot of people ask me, Russ, like, what keeps you doing it? What do you still have fun? And the answer to that question is absolutely, right? And I think the biggest thing for an airshow pilot, to an even greater extent to all of us pilots, is that every day is different, right? We have to look at the weather, the conditions, the wind, our fitness, how is the airplane doing, all of those factors. So every time you take to the air to fly an air show, it is a huge challenge. So you never get bored of it, right? And then when you come to Oshkosh, you're here with, 600,000 of your closest friends that are all watching you fly, that they know what they're looking at. So when you come to Oshkosh, you have to have your A game.
So how has aerobatic displays and competitions, how have they changed over the years? The airplanes have gotten better, the equipment has gotten better, the safety has gotten better. How do all those come together to make for a great spectacle for the audience?
Well, you're so right. So you've touched on all of it, right? So the airplanes are so much better. The composite propellers, carbon fiber airplanes, they're so much stronger. The maneuverability of the airplanes because of that is really just a lot better than it was even 20 years ago. And then the pilots, it was just you would fly on your own. Today, we all have coaches. We're all getting watched from the ground. We all have telemetry in our airplanes. All of these things that go into trying to make, if you will, a better presence in the sky, a better show, and making it more dynamic for the audience. And I think that's what you see today, as opposed to 20 and 30 years ago, is more of a production in the sky.
Okay, so how many shows do you do a year?
Yes, I fly a lot of shows, about 18 shows a year. We start out in Florida. The air show circuit kind of follows the sun, right? So we go up to the Northeast, out to the Midwest, down into Texas, and then we finish in California in the fall, out in Huntington Beach, and then back to Florida to finish the season with a couple of shows. So it's a long year. We have a tractor trailer that follows us around. It does about 50,000 miles a year on the road. The airplane does about 200 hours a year cross country, and there's 8 team members that follow us around and put on. It's really just like a big circus on the road.
But it's also like a big family vacation, right? At every stop, you've got lots of friends there. You all know each other. You all hang out together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The airshow business, we say it's one of the only businesses where your heroes become your friends, and that's happened with me. And now you have friends all over the country, and because I was in the Red Bull Air Race, all over the world. And so we all travel together, whether it's the Thunderbirds, the Blue Angels, Rob Holland, Kevin Coleman, Kyle Franklin, Matt Yonkin. We're all a big family on the road, and we see each other at so many air shows. And in fact, Oshkosh is one of the only places where you see everybody but nobody, because we're all so busy that we're all here, but we don't get to spend much time with each other. But at these air shows around the country, Thursday nights, Friday nights, we get to spend a lot of time together, really cementing friendships. And like you say, we look at the air show world as an air show family.
But one night you might be at a state fair, and one night you might be in front of 100,000 people at a fireworks display or something like that. What is different about Oshkosh? What's the thrill of flying at Oshkosh?
Well, for me, the thrill of Oshkosh is all the people that went before me, right? Charlie Hillard, Tom Pobresny, Gene Soucy, Leo Laudensager, the French Connection. You're flying in front of an educated, amazing group of people that love aviation just like we do, and you're on the same stage that really the greats have been. And that's the big thing, is you feel like in your little bitty way, you're contributing to sort of the legacy that is EAA.
and Airventure, and our goal is to just try to make it a little better than when we found it.
Okay, 29 years is a long time, and even though you don't look it, you are getting on in years. What's the training regimen like for an older aerobatics pilot?
You know, it hasn't for me. Thanks a lot, by the way. It hasn't changed for me over the years. It's really fitness, sleep, food, and tons of practice and training. And as long as you're still thrilled by it and having fun, and you want to get up in the morning and go practice, I'll keep doing it.
Now, most people know you as this really high-level competitor, and you're a Red Bull air race competitor, and all of that. But you are very much at the grassroots of aviation with your other business. Tell us a little bit about the flight training business and how that's changed, and how your school is adapting to that.
Yeah, it's been a great thing. I grew up in the flight school business with my dad and my mom. We sold that business quite a few years ago and started another one. So Mike Goulian Aviation with my wife and I. We have a big Cirrus training center back in Boston, right near Cape Cod, and then just west of Boston, 2 locations. And we're also training people in upset recovery and some aerobatics, and also some grass airport and backcountry flying with Huskies. So we're trying to take pilots and put them in amazing technically advanced airplanes, but then also take their skill set to the grass and to aerobatics. So we're making a complete pilot. And you know, I think the thing today, with all the technically advanced airplanes and solid state instruments, the redundancy that we have in the cockpit makes it so much safer, right? I remember when we were at our flight school in the 80s and the 90s, and you've got a gyro with a vacuum pump, and you're worried about the thing in the clouds. Not as much today, right? And now the training materials are changing. I was just over at Cirrus, and they're now looking at sort of virtual reality stuff, and it's amazing where the industry is going so fast to make what's become a complex airspace environment, as you know, a little easier and all of these things. So I hope the technology will just make it easier and more fun.
Safer too.
And safer, for sure.
So you'll get the odd student that comes through and you see that spark. What's your advice to somebody who wants to be an aerobatic pilot, Mike?
You know, I tell them that it's a long road. It's not an easy road. For me, I tell people I was too stupid to stop, right? I didn't go the airline route, and I was lucky enough to make my living being an air show pilot and competing in air race. It's something that you have to be really, really passionate about, and I tell everybody, do a dual track, right? So I flew corporate airplanes, King Airs, Learjet citations, and all that in my career as I was competing, and sort of one out more than the other. And I tell people, have a parallel track, right? Go for the corporate, the military, the airlines, and make aerobatics sort of your hobby. And then if you're lucky, it becomes your vocation.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you having you on, Mike.
My pleasure.
It's been great to see you again. We'll look forward to seeing you in the show this afternoon. And in the meantime, we've got a pretty appropriate cool plane of the day. It's a little Falco, and Falcos are cool little home builts that go really, really fast. And they're very popular, and let's go have a look at one of the nicest Falcos on the field.
So I'm Dave Nason. I'm from Kent, Washington, which is near Seattle. So this airplane is a Falco, which is an F8L is the model number. It's an Italian airplane, so that's why it's red. It has to be Italian. It's fast. It's got to be red. So, but it's all wood. It has about 180. This was 180 horse. There's 160 or 180. I have a pretty good cruise, around 200 miles an hour, 210 is my cruise, running about 8.5 gallons an hour. It's a real efficient airplane. They're a 2-finger airplane. You don't put your hand on the stick, you just sort of sneak up to it. And like I say, I've got about 1,800 hours on it now, which is a lot of flying for it. I just fly it all the time. It's just too much fun. I didn't have to build it all, but I started with the tail section in the basement, and then I moved up to the the wing upstairs in my hangar, because the wing is one piece, 26 feet long. And then when that was done, then I moved the whole operation up to my shop across from the house, built the fuselage. There's no one part that's harder or less than the others. I think fitting the canopy is tricky because the glass, and I think that would have been the most fussy to do. You can say the word avionics. I think I have a Garmin 250 XL and just an old KX155 radio. It doesn't have any of the new fancy stuff that has what they call round dials in there, and it works just fine for me. Do I ever fly aerobatics? I like to do 8 and 16 point rolls. It could fly aggressive, but I try to fly real smooth. No one else has ever flown it. I'm the only one that's flown it. I've given hundreds of rides, but no one else I've never seen it in the air. I'm going to continue to fly it for as long as I can.
Welcome back live. We have a little bit of extra time today, so we're going to show you an extra cool airplane. There's a video coming up of the Lancaster bomber, and it's very neat. So this has been Russ Niles reporting for AvWeb for Oshkosh Live. See us again tomorrow at 11:30, and see all my colleagues starting at 8:30 in the morning. Thanks very much.
Tempest plays a vital role in the industry, and in today's world we are the leading spark plug and oil filter manufacturer for general aviation. We've been able to not only release new products, but we've taken legacy products and created innovations. We take great pride not only from a design standpoint, but from a manufacturing standpoint, all the way down to making sure the customer is satisfied with the product. Quality, innovation, performance. Tempest.
It's happening. Okay, it's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag. Yeah. What?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Next.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Trashed.
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
We do it all. We do it all.
Hundreds of majors, an amazing campus, faculty mentors. You can find what you're looking for at Middle Tennessee State, the University of Opportunities. We do it all.
It's happening. Okay, it's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag.
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Next. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Trashed.
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to Oshkosh Live 2024. It's Kaylee Nick. Back with you again for our Flying Let's Get Social segment. It's lunchtime here at the Oshkosh grounds on day 3 of the show. We're here on Wednesday, and the weather, absolutely gorgeous. It's warming up just a little bit, but hey, it still feels pretty good outside. Haven't had any major thunderstorms or any major rain or weather delays this morning, so I think we're looking pretty good for the afternoon air show. And we're going to take a little stroll around again today out to the main drag and maybe point out some cool airplanes. But before we get there, we got my friend Cy Pinkert here with us. And Cy, you were on the show the very first day. Since we've been catching up with you since Monday, what's been your favorite part of Oshkosh 2024?
I think our favorite part of Oshkosh is actually going out and checking out the campsites. We went out this morning. It's some incredible things out there. People have been coming here for longer than I've been alive, and they've got phenomenal stories. So
the campgrounds are one of the funnest places, and I haven't been brave enough to venture over there yet, and I'm absolutely not brave enough to sleep in a tent here at Oshkosh. Monday night, we had a pretty substantial thunderstorm come through at about 4 in the morning.
Really bad.
Being in a tent in that, not an ideal circumstance. Would you rather be in a tent or in an airplane during that?
I think I might cuddle up in my airplane and spend the night there.
Yeah, at least huddle up in one of the seats, right? You know, put your head out the window and just kind of hang out. So we saw your guys' approach into the Oshkosh Airport on day 1, IFR, and it was really rather uneventful. Flying in either yesterday or today would have been a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just lucked out with the timing of the Cirrus mass arrival, and they weren't allowing arrivals when we came in, so we only got in because we were IFR.
And it was perfect. It was so smooth, so easy that it was beautiful conditions.
Oh yeah, absolutely beautiful. So.
And you guys fly out of Colorado, so you're used to flying in a little bit crazier weather than this.
Yeah, and actually our airport that we fly out of, Rocky Mountain Metro, is probably busier than that arrival that we did. Not anything like Oshkosh, but just the way it came.
That's crazy. So, okay, before we let you go, you're here and you're part of the AvWeb family, kind of informally, but you do some writing for us, you do some video for us. What can we be looking for from you coming up?
Oh man, I don't know. Just stay tuned. We'll have some stuff coming out soon.
There we go. Cy, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your AirVenture. We got 4 more days left before we're done here?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Well, we are done here in about 2 days. We're going to go venture and go see some cool airplanes.
Awesome.
All right, let's go, guys. Let's hit the road and go see what we can find around here. So we did this on the very first day, and we took a little stroll out and about. We took you guys by the flying booth. We got to hear a little bit from Middle Tennessee State University and get to hear from some of the students. And the first day, of course, it's a little bit light on people sometimes. People don't really start to file into Oshkosh here until the second to the third day. Wednesday night, from what I hear, is one of the most exciting nights here, because you have the nighttime air show, which from 8 to 10 is absolutely spectacular. Doing acrobatics and being out and flying in the daytime enough is scary enough as it is. But add the darkness and add some fireworks and some pyrotechnics, and it is definitely something that's worth watching. So we can only assume that we're going to see a bunch more people file in here this afternoon as well. Until then, let's take a little stroll and go see who we can find out on the grounds of AirVenture today. Let's see, we're going to maybe look for some lucky or unlucky victims, just depending on how you want to call it. Let's see who we can find. Come over here. These guys are waving me down. You guys waved us over, so we're going to come say hey to you.
Just waving. We're just saying hi.
Well, hi. My name's Kaylee Nix. We're here with Oshkosh Live today, and give us a little bit who you guys are and what you're doing at Oshkosh.
We're with Bulldog Flight Formation. We came in from Arkansas, Little Rock.
Oh, that's a pretty far flight. What's your name, sir?
Phil Seaman, and I'm here with Sport Air USA. We're out of North Little Rock, Arkansas. And
all right, and then we got a couple more over here. Tell me your name.
Gerald Lloyd.
All right, Gerald, and how long have you all been flying together?
Oh gosh, what's it been? I guess the Bulldog Flight's been together for 15 to 20 years.
And how long have y'all been coming to EAA together?
Well, I've been probably 30 times to Oshkosh over my years.
I love that. So before we let you guys go, obviously you guys are pros if you've been here for 3 decades. What is the one part of the EAA Airventure experience that you absolutely can't miss?
I love vintage. I love all the vintage airplanes. It's so romantic.
All right, Gerald, for you, what is the one part of Airventure that is an absolute must-see?
Well, the air shows are a must-see, and just like Phil, I like the old airplanes too.
I also like the old airplanes, vintage. Vintage has a special place in my heart, even though I'm brand new to the space. I love seeing them. Last question for you: what's your favorite part?
Definitely the Warbirds.
Yeah.
Definitely the Warbirds.
And then Bulldog. Are we talking Georgia Bulldogs or something different?
No. Bulldogs is his old call sign, so that's where you come from.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, enjoy your time here at Airventure. Thanks for waving us over. We love to see it.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys around.
Thank you.
Check out their airplanes. They're absolutely gorgeous. Flight from Little Rock, Arkansas is also no small feat to come out here, so that's great to see. And flying together 30 years at Airventure is definitely not the shortest time that we've seen, but I've heard some records, and we've got one friend of flying who has come to Oshkosh now for what will be 7 decades next year, 70 straight years, never having missed an EAA Airventure. And that is something that I think is just an absolute accomplishment and an absolute testament to the love of aviation. And you know what? Something that maybe we'll accomplish one day. I don't know. Let's see who else we can find. We're going to head out